Welcome, everyone. This is Andres Restart. I am joined by my friend and co host, Brandon. And tonight, as we do every Monday night, we are talking about Nintendo. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Enough.
Good? Enough. Okay.
Yes, a
Well,
lot of
I'm glad
work.
you're doing enoughly good.
A lot of work, but in between, it's been nice, I guess. I get
Okay.
I get one day off this week, which is just amazing.
Almost okay.
I love that for me.
Okay. I mean, a lot of people work 6 days a week. Some people work 7 days a week.
Yes, yes. I feel
Yeah.
very bad for those people. I don't know, maybe they're fine with it. I don't know. I'm not
Maybe.
fine with working 6 days a week. It's annoying.
Mm,
Well, not on this
yeah.
job at least.
It
If I was
depends
doing
what you're
something I
doing.
liked.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have really much of a choice. But you know what seems to never really take a break, Brandon? This is me transitioning. Um, the rumors, the hype
The
train,
rumor
the
mill.
leaks and speculations, even the news. I took a break for a day, and there's like 4 different topics. You were like, "Hey, why haven't you talked about this yet? Why haven't you talked about this yet?" They all kind of happened around the same time. This weekend, pretty much. I mean, some things are
Mm.
kind of happening low key, and they sort of led into the weekend where it started to get more attention. And we're going to be talking about a number of those things tonight. Not all of them, but a number of them. For example, one of the topics for tonight is to talk about how we have technically new lore details for Tears of the Kingdom, because there was this interview conducted by Nintendo Dream Magazine with the producers and director of Tears of the Kingdom. So
Oh.
Eiji Aonuma, the producer, and Hidemaru Fujibayashi, the director, they were in this interview, and a lot of things were discussed. We have a rough translation, but there's some very interesting things that we'll be discussing today. We're not going to break it down fully. I am planning kind of like a more dedicated theory analysis
Mm.
on these lore details, but that's going to take a little bit of time, and there's other stories people are expecting me to talk about sooner, so
Oh yeah.
I'll be getting to those. Like, for example, today I prioritize talking about this new Zelda remake rumor. So yeah, apparently there's a remake or remaster or something Zelda being teased by someone who has a good track history, who's an industry analyst, who knows these things and put something out there and then took it down, and everyone's talking about that. So maybe something Zelda related will be announced by the end of the year. That's what the overall discussion is right now about it. So we're going to be talking about that as well. That's probably going to be our main topic for the evening. But it doesn't seem like a week goes by where we can't talk about Switch 2, because there's always something that pops up that we're like, oh, well, probably should talk about this. It's worthy of conversation. So regarding Switch 2, there's a couple things. There's this patent that everyone's talking about now. It just
Yes.
popped up. I'm not saying this for sure is what the Switch 2 will be. It is just a patent, but we'll talk about that and just kind of the details of it, if it makes sense or not. It's kind of some fun conversation. But also on top of that, there is this apparent leaker from Korea that has leaked details about the Switch 2. So it's I say apparent leak. In other words, I guess like it's funny between like the how people like to find leak and rumor.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
it can be a little bit of a blurred line situation, but a leak is something that has leaked out,
It's like
but shouldn't be
so
out.
facts, like
Right. Yeah. But a rumor is something that is we're not sure if it's going to be true or not. It's been we heard this, So and sometimes
yeah.
like we you call a leaker because they have a track history of stating things from the inside that are going to happen, but we treat those as rumors until we know
Yeah,
what
until
it
they confirm.
right. So
Leaks
it's
tend to
kind of
have some
weird.
kind of evidence to
But
back them up.
sometimes leaks are very apparent, right? Like sometimes it's a leak. Like for example, if there's a data mine, for example, or with the
Right.
Nvidia leak where we saw like different like chipsets they were working on, or like the legal battle between Microsoft and the FTC. Like there are some things that you like
They leak actual
that's leaked.
things, documents
Yeah,
and things.
Oh,
Not just
another
speculation,
example that
or not just words, I guess.
true. But another a great example of a leak is the Tears of the Kingdom OLED. That was
Ah,
leaked,
yeah,
but we didn't know if it was really a leak or a fabrication. So,
right.
it's hard to call it a leak for sure because it could be fake. But it was a leak. We know that now because, well, we have it, and it was a carbon copy. Like, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Uh, anyways, point is, we got some Switch 2 rumors to discuss today. We got a lot of Zelda stuff to discuss today. It's a Zelda themed podcast, I would say. That's why I kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
I went hard on the Zelda stuff for the thumbnail. So that will be the bulk of the discussion tonight, which I find somewhat refreshing because while yes,
Oh,
we talked about a lot of Zelda for a big part of this year, since Tears of the Kingdom has come out, the Zelda talk has kind of maybe died down a little bit,
oh yeah.
and we've focused more on Mario. But today, Zelda's gonna have there's gonna be a lot of Zelda talk, so I'm excited for that.
Oh yeah. Always love to talk Zelda.
Guys in the chat, I will be checking with you shortly, but if you could let me know how everything is looking and sounding. I do have background music on, but it might be a little too quiet. I'm not certain. Brandy, can you hear it? Or is it too
Yeah,
quiet?
the level seems good to me actually.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, if I need to change that, or if there's something wrong with my mic or Brandon's or anything, please let me know, guys, in the chat, so I can adjust it now while we're still early on into the show. And on that note, since we are still early on, if you could like the stream, very helpful. Get more people in here. It'll help out the show. So please like the stream. Very much helpful. And maybe we could. Well, I mean, we're gonna have a good podcast regardless of what happens. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, this is happening. But yeah, so let's start off with some Q&A. We'll check in with the chat, talk about a few things, and then we'll get into the topics.
Cool.
So looking through here, Giancarlo says this patent is for a canceled 3DS successor, just in case Switch was a flop. Do we know that for a fact? That would be interesting. We'll probably touch on that when we get into the patent stuff, because I mean we could even make that our first major topic. You have a theory?
No, I'm saying that's not a bad theory.
No, it's not a bad theory, and that may very well be the case. But we'll get into that. Maybe we'll focus on that first, so we can get out of the way. AV James, I can't see Nintendo dropping any Zelda game in December, remake or not. I don't know. 2022, 2024 for sure, though. Yeah.
It's just weird that they haven't announced it yet.
I have thoughts, but I feel like I should save it for the actual topic. So, but there's definitely a few different angles. If you saw my video today, you kind of know where I'm coming from. But it depends on what it is. So we'll see on that. And maybe it's just an announcement. Maybe it's not going to be a release, which to me makes more sense.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, if anything, because again, rumor. We don't know for sure what's going to happen.
Make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Moving on here. Let's see. Hello there, Having Hope. Hello there, Captain Doge. Hello to everyone. Thank you for the birthday wishes yesterday, by the way. Very much appreciated.
Yeah. Happy belated.
You wished me happy birthday yesterday.
Yeah, but, again.
Oh, double birthday wishes. Thank you. Joycey J. Good evening. Joycey J says, hey, my bets are on Phantom Hourglass for a new Zelda remake.
Oh, I would like it. Be nice.
That would be a good 2D Zelda to remake.
It wouldn't be my best option, but I would take it for sure.
How do you translate the touchscreen controls to, say, Switch, for example?
I think you just have to ditch them.
Or use a right stick. They could probably come up with. Yeah, they probably could figure some things out. I don't know if I would love it though. It
probably just use normal like controls for movement, and then anything that was more touch specific for like puzzles, maybe the pointer.
Yeah, so like you could in Phantom Hourglass, from what I remember, like if you want to do a sword attack, you just kind of slash at the screen or poke at enemies. I don't remember exactly. It was something like that. Like,
Yeah.
but it wasn't anything crazy. Like they could just delegate all that to a single button press for sword
Oh, yeah.
attacks. I mean, the sword fighting is even more simple in Phantom Hourglass than it is in most other Zelda games. But it felt cool because you were doing the slashing on the
Yeah.
screen.
I always
So
liked
you
that.
would lose a little bit of that by not having a touch screen. And then you could just move around with an analog stick. You did draw like pathways though, so you might be able to do that with like the right stick, I guess.
You could use it,
And maybe
just
there are
pointer controls. Just kind of use the gyro.
maybe
Yeah.
gyro. That feels even maybe harder to pull off, but one or the other. Or
I mean, they
both.
use gyro for pointers in several games. You just kind of have to recenter it.
Yeah.
It doesn't
There's
work as well as like the Wii, but it still works well enough.
There's a few different ways it could work out. I just kind of question if it'll feel good, you know? So we'll see. And who knows, maybe they kind of just totally rethink Phantom Hourglass. But if you rethink the touch controls, like it's like a different game at that point. So I would imagine you would have to find a way to emulate it as opposed to just completely like replacing that mechanic with something else that just fits it. It would have to be some sort of emulation. I don't mean like emulate. I mean, maybe they could emulate the game, but at that point, like it's not a remake anymore, is it?
No.
I just meant like, you know, basically the game, keeping the gameplay what it was, not changing around the puzzles dramatically, just coming up with controls that emulate the controls from the original release. Dominic Sanchez, comment Andres restart W. Well, thank you for pointing out the W. Thank you. Joycey J says everything looks and sounds good. Awesome.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Push Player Game says that so as well, as does Having Hope. Great. Charles as well. Thank you guys for all pointing that out. I'm glad that things don't sound like a dumpster fire. That's good to know. So, yeah. Boo Mini. They should remake Minish Cap and have it look like the newer Link's Awakening. I actually
would like a different style.
Go with a different art style. Like I don't dislike the Link's Awakening art style. Like I actually, at first it was a little off-putting when I first saw it, but once I kind of considered what Link's Awakening is from a story perspective, I was like, oh, this actually fits really well. It kind of helps to enhance that dreamlike environment that it's meant to be.
Yeah.
But Minish Cap, you know, I really love Minish Cap kind of like as it is visually.
Oh,
so I might not even want it to be like in 3D, or if they did, I would want them to come up with something very unique about it. I mean, you could, you know, build it off that same engine, but a slightly different art style that maybe is more reminiscent of Minish Cap. Yeah, what was it, Unreal Engine 4?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as I was saying it. Could be.
I would like them to just do like 2D, like just full 2D art though. I think that would look really nice.
Yeah. That would probably be more work actually.
Potentially.
I want to confirm if Link. I think you're right that it was Unreal Engine 4, but I just want to confirm. Of course. Apparently, that was just speculation. All right, so here John Cartwright is saying Link's Awakening doesn't use Unreal. That was just speculated prior to launch.
I mean, according to Google, it does use it. But
yeah, and Digital Foundry, when they made a video on it, they seem to have thought that it was Unreal.
It looks like Unreal. And Nintendo used Unreal before then. So I would imagine it'd be Unreal.
It would be in the
engine
credits.
It would be.
It would be in the credits. We will be able to sort this out, but I'm not going to look into Link's Awakening credits during the podcast.
No.
But you can find out by checking the credits. Anyway, I would like to point out a super chat that we have here. Venetus with the super chat. Thank you very much. Rosie Rupee Land Remake.
Is that one of the Tingle games or something?
One of? There's more than one?
I think so. I think there's several.
Tingle's Rosie Rupee Land for Nintendo DS. I actually would like to play it if it's good. I've never played it.
Probably Japanese
so,
only.
Interesting. Ripened Tingle's oh my god. Ripened Tingle's balloon trip of love.
That just
What
not
are
sound
these?
right?
What is
That's
going
very
on?
wrong.
Yeah, I've never heard of these. I knew there was I thought there was a Tingle game. I didn't know there was Tingle games, and I didn't realize the subtitles for these Tingle games were questionable at best.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for enlightening me on the
Yes, that was a trip.
Tingle games. Yeah. Anyway, I think with that, we should move on. We'll come back to the chat on the next topic here, after the next topic here. And well, I mean, I guess it's multifaceted, but let me just it's gonna be a general Switch 2 rumor roundup, and we're gonna be talking about different things related to Switch 2. So let's tackle the patent first, because that's what a lot of people are kind of bringing up right now. So yeah, Nintendo Everything. I saw this from Nintendo Everything. They have several images on the patent here. Do they have a source? So I can just I don't see a source. Just take their word for it. Yeah, there's no source.
Yeah, I find a lot of articles don't put sources now, and I'm just
Anyway.
like, what happened?
I know these
journalism.
images are in the patent, so it's fine. I can present this into this. We'll just talk about it. It's fine. Let's see here. All right. So yeah, Nintendo Everything. I saw it in their article. So they have these patents. Apparently, I can't find the source on it, but it exists. So this patent was just filed recently, or we've seen it publicly recently, and it talks about this hardware that has multiple screens. I think the implication is, and I could be mistaken on this, but I believe the implication is that there is. See, when I saw this, I thought it was just saying that there's two screens. Like you have the one, you slide it up, and then there's the second smaller screen under it.
Right.
But there's been discussion of it being just split apart. And I've seen some people talking about it maybe even being a total of 3 screens, which doesn't seem to make any sense to me. That seems kind of crazy. But point is, though, they're showcasing some kind of hardware here that has at least 2 screens. It looks like a beefed up, super sized 3DS.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at this side here, you can see how the top panel has the shoulder buttons, and then the bottom panel has shoulder buttons as well. There's a lot of shoulder buttons here.
Very weird.
But I don't think we should really think about the amount of buttons we see on a patent to suggest one way or another if this is something that's going to be used, because whenever they show patents, they always show a simplified version. They're not going to show every single thing that there. It's more so just to convey the idea that they're trying to patent so they can secure that technology. And that's pretty much what it is. But I guess before we continue on here with the speculation and all this, I just want to clarify, and Brandon, feel free to speak your own thoughts on this as well. But when it comes to patents, they don't mean that that's what's going to come to market. I've seen times where we've gotten patents and we do see something like the patent materialize in the market, but also many times, if not more so, they don't materialize into anything. It's just something that they considered, but ultimately didn't come to market with. But it goes both ways. So I think it's worth having the conversation, but don't assume that this is what it is that's going to happen in the future.
No, I 100% believe that this is not what is going to be. Like, it's not going to be available like right away as a main feature on the Switch 2. Like, the Switch 2 won't be this, right? If so, they would have just patent it at a later date and actually announced it before the patent. We saw a lot of Switch patents before NX patents or whatever before the Switch that didn't actually come to pass, like the supplemental computing device and different ideas for different controllers and
I'll
such
never give up
that
on that
never
one.
came up.
The supplemental computing device. I still believe.
So yeah, I think this is probably just something they were looking into at one point, and then they're not actually doing this, most likely.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say that if this is like just what this, like, if this is basically what it would, let's hypothetically, let's say this is a Switch 2, right? And this top part, it's just the big screen you would look at if you were playing in portable mode. You slide it up and all the buttons are exposed, and it's basically, it gives you the same type of Switch 2 experience, but there is an additional touchscreen that you can use to kind of play games like you did back on Wii U and 3DS and DS. And this would be awesome because, well, all those games all of a sudden become playable on this system. We can have some sort of NSO or more backwards compatibility, or these games could be remastered or brought over, and they would make sense. For example, we were just talking about Phantom Hourglass and how it might be a little bit of a problem to remake that for just a Switch that doesn't have a second screen. But if you did have a second screen, kind of like this, it would be more doable. Now,
Easier.
I don't know how this might work if you're playing in just
Docked mode.
Docked mode, but
Maybe
they're
because the top screen is detachable.
Supposedly, that's why I wish I had the source in this. I'm sorry, I probably should have looked a little bit more, because there might have been something here that would have said if it's detachable. I've heard people talk about it being detachable.
Yeah, because like the diagrams aren't really that helpful if you don't have like all the
Text.
descriptions, yeah, of what you're looking at.
Yeah. I mean, if it's attachable, that's one way, but something that makes more
They're
sense to me.
talking about the hinge a lot, that much I can tell.
Well, I mean, they better have some good hinge technology.
Yeah, if it's
Because if this thing
removable, that
breaks,
would make sense.
like DSs would break all the time because of the hinge. The hinge would
Yeah.
everything. A DS's lifespan would hinge on the hinge.
Yeah,
So-
that's what happened to my DS. Like,
Yeah, I've
12
lost a
years
few. I
after I
lost a
got it
couple
or
back in the day because of that.
mine was like just a couple years ago, and I got that like when I was a kid.
What I wanted to say though, and this kind of ties into everything we'll be talking about a little bit later, but what if you kind of played it like this, and there isn't a dock? So what you do is it just, maybe you have like a Bluetooth dongle or something, and it just sends the signal over to the TV, and you can still play on the actual console itself, but you can still see it in a large screen, and that's how it works.
Yeah, I guess they could use the same technology they did for the Wii U.
Yeah. The only problem I would have with that is that if there isn't like a connection to a dedicated power supply, you would run into issues of battery.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be limited to just a few hours when you're playing in docked mode. It wouldn't be like you could just plug it in, charge it, and just be fine. I mean, you could have a cord connecting it while you play, but that wouldn't be ideal. That would, in some ways, feel like a significant downgrade. Like, why, having to play while being tethered the entire time, or for most of the time, because there's not a dedicated power supply.
I don't think that's a great solution. It's just kind of a worse solution than what we have now.
No, but the rumor we're going to be talking about shortly does kind of suggest something like that, actually.
Interesting to have that as an option.
Yeah. But before we move on, onto other Switch 2 stuff, like just with this patent, like, is there anything about this that you're like, oh, they should do this, or this might happen at all?
I mean, it seems like a very, very expensive thing to do. I mean, it would be cool for like DS stuff, 3DS emulation, DS emulation, things like that. If they did things with it, it'd be cool. But I feel like this is probably one of those kind of gimmicks that would end up like the Wii U gamepad, and it would just be an extra added cost that ultimately hinders the system more than it helps.
I like the idea of having a second screen. I'm not against that. But how it would translate to docked play, I don't know. That because
Yeah.
just as we discussed, like how would that work without like I just don't see how it makes sense because of the battery. Like unless Nintendo comes up with a technology where they have unlimited battery, and it's just which would be an insane innovation. I just don't see how they'd be able to pull that off. Or I mean, maybe you just don't have the touchscreen when you're playing in docked mode. But for someone like me who likes to play in docked mode most of the time,
Yeah.
that would be I wouldn't like that. It just would be weird. Now, maybe if you can take off a piece of the screen and maybe the main piece still docks, then that maybe that's how it could work. But then at the same time, that just seems like a lot of moving parts. It doesn't really seem like the best idea.
You saw this essentially second controller with a giant screen on it that's gonna have terrible battery life.
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't seem like it's a cool idea. And I like if there was no like power consumption issues and it could run everything perfectly well on the TV and you could still have the dual screen gameplay at the same time, both portable and docked. Like if those weren't issues, like if they somehow found solutions for that, I think this would be actually a great thing to do.
I mean,
but I just don't see how that's realistic.
I also don't see how they can afford in power terms to run a second screen on the system. It's going to take up a lot of battery life.
Yeah. One of the issues with the Wii U, just like the extra little operating power required to kind of have two different screens and things going on both, that caused some additional issues for getting games to run on that system, especially with third parties. And there was other bottlenecks that the Wii U suffered from. But, if we're talking about the Switch 2 and it having great third-party support, if you have something like this where it has to now do things on two different screens, obviously one screen, well, maybe not obviously, but in most cases, the second screen wouldn't take up that much extra power, but it still would. It would still take up resources. When you're already talking about a system that's portable, and there's already like a significant gap and difference of power between it and the home consoles that you're trying to get the third-party support comparable to, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like the idea be worth it for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, I do like the idea that Giancarlo brought up earlier, though, that maybe this was kind of what they were thinking would have been the 3DS successor.
It's possible. It'd be interesting that we would be seeing this now and not like many years ago.
Yeah, I don't know on the timing on it. I mean, maybe the thing is, R&D's happening all the time. I'm sure they have several different like hardware concepts that they're working on, and only one's going to make it out. Maybe there was a point in time where they were debating if they should go back to having a home console and a handheld system, or two different pillars, two different platforms that they focus on. And maybe they were prepared to kind of follow up the 3DS. But, so like the 3DS was done totally in terms of support in 2019. They were doing the Switch. But maybe there was like a period of time, like early on the Switch, where they were kind of considering that. And I don't know, maybe the idea bounced around for a couple of years. It's possible.
It would be very odd to me that they would look at the Switch and be like, you know what, we should go back. We should think about that.
But also, maybe we're making a lot of assumptions on the patent. Maybe there's some technologies there, but maybe they're just kind of thinking about what if they did bring back the second screen. Like maybe they at least would consider bringing back the second screen, because it was something that they've had some success with in the past. And they came up with a technology for it and they patented it. They created a patent for it, but that doesn't mean it's going to come to market. Or maybe there's an idea there that they will use, but that total concept that seems to be suggested, not not what we're kind of like talking about here, where it can play
Right.
DS and 3DS games and Wii U games, and it can send the entire image over to the TV without any power like connect like any sort of connection to the wall or anything like that. Yeah, I'll remember this patent if something happened. It comes up when Switch 2 comes out, and it's like, oh, that was from the patent. Awesome, but I'm not really expecting this to materialize into anything.
No, not really.
On that note, though, there are other rumors that maybe you haven't seen as much discussion on recently, or maybe you have. Maybe I don't know who you're watching, but some people have talked about it already. And this is coming from, I don't even remember. I can't even. Well, okay, no, their ad is in English. _@ Arixia. And there's a couple things they said that are interesting. So let me share that with you here. Okay. All right, so there's two different parts. This is translated from Korean by Google. So the first part, keep in mind, they're tweeting about a whole bunch of technology.
Oh, wow.
It's just like a long list of things that they're apparently leaking out. So here's one for the Switch 2. Nintendo, next generation Switch under development. It is linked to existing Switch series chips and focuses on improving the console. Same display size, but reduced display weight. So this part here, we have a rumor that the screen is supposed to be 8 inches. Now, the rumor is a rumor and may not end up being true, but only one of these could be true, because the same size is not 8 inches as we've heard.
No.
I think the OLED is like 7 inches. There's, one of these is true, or well, technically both could be wrong, but that's just something I'm kind of pointing out here that makes me wonder what is or isn't correct. But there's a little bit more here that's maybe a little bit easier for people to kind of debate on. The next model for Switch is Nintendo Super Play, pseudonym. Play with game chips like a Switch. It has the same button structure as a Super Famicom. It will maintain the existing concept of being able to play inside and outside the home, but will not use a dock like the Switch. So I don't think this is going to be the actual name, Nintendo Super Play. But stranger things have happened, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be called that for sure. I mean, they say it's a pseudonym, but it just sounds kind of lame.
Yeah,
Nintendo Super Play.
It will play games like a Switch, though. Game chips. So I guess that what they're trying to say is it'll have cartridges, which we already believe. They're also saying it'll have the same button structure as a Super Famicom. So what's funny about this is that, I mean, this is a translation, so we should take that into account here. But the Super Famicom button structure is the same button structure as the current Nintendo Switch. It's just the colors that are supposedly going to be different. For those that don't know, the Super Famicom is the initial Super Nintendo, like the Super Nintendo is a localized version, and the Famicom version, the original Japanese version, had face buttons that were the 4 different colors. You had A for red, B for green, yellow for Y, and blue for X. And that was kind of like the original sort of colors. And what's funny is that a lot of people now say, "Oh, those are the Xbox colors." No, Nintendo did it first a long, long, long time ago. So that part we've seen. Mario RPG is going to have it. Apparently, a few other third-party games are going to have it. Paper Mario 1000-Year Door has it. So it makes people wonder if maybe these kind of colored buttons are going to be on Switch 2. This person may very well be aware of that already, and they could just be saying that. So we'll see on that. But
it's pretty likely.
There is that speculation that there will be buttons like the Super Famicom.
I just don't like the idea of it not using a dock. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, if you use
I think we can click off here now.
if you use Bluetooth, then as we were talking about before, your battery life is gonna be garbage, and like you're not gonna be able to run it at a better. You're gonna get the same graphical experience between docked and undocked play because you're not gonna be able to run it at higher clocks like you do on the normal Switch to get better performance. So you're gonna just get a very gimped experience compared to what they could do with a dock. And if there's no dock, but you can plug it into the wall, I'm just confused. Like, is it just wires and you just set it down? Because that would just be really clunky and weird. I just think it's gonna have a dock. I don't believe this for a second. This whole no dock thing.
Yeah,
I don't think the technology is there to make that make any kind of sense at all.
The problem is that it needs an external power source.
Yeah.
If you're gonna play docked mode, you need it to be able to charge. I mean, maybe they rethink the dock. You know, if they say a dock like the Switch, so maybe it's not exactly the same kind of structure, but there needs to be something where you plug in the Switch, you let it charge, and it also it overclocks or raises the clock speeds or what have you, and it plays the games in a higher fidelity mode for the TV. Like that needs to happen, or else it's. I think you're losing out on the hybrid nature of the device. It just wouldn't work as well if it's just kind of like a handheld that can boot over, stream over an image for a couple hours before the battery dies. I don't think
the system
that's the
back
best
for
way to
no
do
reason.
it. Yeah, that I would consider that a huge step back from what the Switch currently is. Now, I mean, on one hand, there might be a certain convenience of having the system in your hands and just being able to press a quick button and it quickly transfers to the TV. Like that would be neat. But I'm assuming you would have to turn on the TV anyways with another remote. So I just
not necessarily because a
no.
lot of TVs
I mean,
wake
remember the
themselves.
Wii U had a TV sync option, like it could function as a TV remote as well. Like maybe you could do that for your Switch 2.
Most modern TVs just wake up anytime an input is registered.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the Switch 2 is going to use cold fusion technology. So, like, this whole the conversation we're having about battery consumption won't matter at all. It'll run at max graphical settings at all times. And yeah, you can boop it over if you want. You can even send it to space, and it could take your entire country with you. Maybe, but probably not. Almost, actually, no.
Definitely not.
Yeah. So, something they could change around the dock, but there still needs to be some sort of docking feature. Just having a Bluetooth dongle, I think it's a little short-sighted. Like that's, I mean, we're I feel like we're beating this with a dead horse at this point. I think you and I agree that's probably not what's going to happen. It just seems
almost
odd
certainly
to me.
In my mind, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to mean what they're saying is wrong. It just depends on how we interpret what they're saying, because they say it's not going to be like the dock. That doesn't mean there won't be some kind of dock. So, it could be the case that what they're saying is still correct. And they talk about the Nintendo Super Play being a pseudonym. Maybe that's not the actual name, right? It's just something that they kind of used to refer to it as a system. Like, that's also a possibility. That all said, I personally don't take much from this information.
No,
but it is something that
not
people
really
are
a lot of new information.
Yeah, but there is something that has also popped up that is kind of a big deal that I think changes the conversation that we have about Switch 2. So we've been speculating a lot about a potential Switch 2 teaser happening this year. And I'm not going to say it's straight up impossible. But remember how I was talking about, I feel like the chances are like a 30 to 40%. They shot back down to like 5 to 10. Maybe 15 if I'm on a good day. We'll see. But the reason I say that is because, and we talked about it, I think I put a video like on Friday. We have information that there will be a new Mario Kart OLED coming out in November.
Ah.
There's gonna be a new OLED bundle. Now you might ask, okay, if it hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but it's likely happening based off the
That
sourcing here.
just
Uh,
sounds so smart too.
yeah, let me pull up the source here. I actually I didn't expect to talk about this, but I realized how relevant it was, so I should. Um, but yeah, Brandon, while I pull that up, explain to me why you think that makes so much more sense.
I think it makes, well, not so much more sense necessarily than announcing a Switch, but I think it makes a lot of sense to have a Mario Kart OLED just because Mario Kart's their best selling game.
Okay.
I just think it would sell really well. And you don't really need to announce it that ahead of time. And, you got the final wave coming up for Mario Kart soon. So it all seems to make a little bit of sense.
Yeah. So I got the source now. So it's coming from Bilbo Kun, on Twitter, who is works with Deal Ads magazine. They are apparently credible. So they're reporting on this. Like they're an investigator, and this is information that they have. And we're gonna find out if this is true or not very soon.
Mm.
But yeah, like you just kind of look at um, what Nintendo's been doing for this holiday. Like they put out already the typical Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle. They put out the Animal Crossing Light bundles. They put out the Switch Sports bundle. They're probably gonna have something else. And we even had the Mario Wonder bundle, right? Or the Mario Wonder OLED. It seems like Nintendo is trying to put out as much as they can for this holiday to clear out all that stock. Like
Oh, yeah.
I think
They're
this
trying to
is
get
like a
their sales
sign.
goal.
Yeah, they're trying to hit that sales goal. They're trying to push sales as much as they can. I think they are prepping for Switch 2, but what it
Feels
seems
like
like
it.
that means is that they're going to try to sell as much Switches as they can this holiday because this could be the last
Oh, yeah.
holiday where Switch is the main platform.
I wouldn't be shocked if there were special edition OLEDs announced even like very close or beyond the Switch 2.
There
I
could
think they
still
did
even
that for
be another
3DS.
revision.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
definitely could be. I
like
expect another quiet revision before the end of Switch, changing out the chipset yet again.
they did that for 3DS. They announced a new 2DS XL
Mm.
once
Oh
Switch
yeah,
was already out, so they can do it
my
again.
brother really wants them to come out with a OLED light. He wants to get a second
Oh,
Switch, but he doesn't want to buy a whole other
an
OLED.
OLED light, yeah, like that's conceivable for sure. Like I think that's probably like the most speculated other Switch revision right now, outside of waiting for
Yeah,
Switch 2.
I think there'll probably be like if there is the OLED light, they'll have that, and at the same time, that chipset in there will probably be different, and they'll probably update all the other chipsets too,
Yeah.
quietly.
So what's kind of like continuing on this conversation, right? Like what the reason why this kind of, again, it's not confirmed, but most people kind of who know about this believe it. I believe it. I think this is happening. Um, is if this is really happening, what this kind of suggests about other speculations we've had, like for example, the amiibo theory, how there's a certain amount of amiibos that are supposed to be restocked soon, and that tends to line up with some sort of major announcement. Like that's not how it always has been. And the fact that Nintendo's recently privatized the Switch First Look trailer, and we've seen how when they've privatized the Switch Lite or the OLED trailers in the past, that's amounted to some sort of announcement, be it another
Mm.
revision or another special edition. It does seem like something is happening in November, but
Right.
the something isn't Switch 2, it's this Mario Kart OLED bundle. So hence why, like, at first I was thinking, oh, maybe there could be something Switch 2 related because of these signs that some sort of hardware is going to be announced. But the hardware is apparently a Mario Kart OLED. And I was doubtful that they would do something like this because we're talking about this. It's the end of October. It still hasn't been
Yeah.
announced yet. But maybe because they are trying to push as much sales as they can, they're doing different bundles and revisions, ahead of time. Like a lot of these bundles, like the Animal Crossing one, for example, and the Mario Kart bundle came out sooner than they have in prior years. It's just Nintendo doing everything they can to push sales for Switch this year
Oh, yeah.
for what supposedly is going to be the final year where it's a dedicated platform. It just kind of makes the most sense at this point.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I was always kind of oh, I don't think it's gonna come out this year. But as you were saying, like the signs, they started they started saying things, and I was like, when there's smoke, maybe there's a bit of fire.
Yeah, they are
But
signs. They're signs for some kind of announcement, but the announcement
right,
didn't have to be Switch 2, and we wanted it to be Switch 2, but
yeah, I think this makes a lot more sense. I mean, I've been
yeah.
saying for a while I don't think it's going to be announced this year, even though I was kind of like, oh, but maybe. No, I've been pretty firm on my stance.
And again, I'm not going to say it can't happen. I think
Sure.
something that should be noted is that they privatized the Nintendo Switch first look trailer. They didn't private the OLED trailer.
Mm.
Last year, they privated the OLED trailer, and then they announced the Splatoon 3 OLED. There's like that's weird. That doesn't
That is
seem to
weird.
match up totally. Maybe it's not related. Maybe the Switch getting privated, that first trailer has nothing to do with this OLED edition. Maybe it does have to do with music licensing issues.
Could be.
Or maybe it is tied to Switch 2, but that doesn't mean they're going to announce it immediately. They're just preparing for that announcement. Maybe they're phasing out the original Switches. And maybe soon
Yeah.
they are going to private the OLED trailer because they're about to announce the Mario Kart OLED bundle. In fact, I haven't checked in like a couple days.
Oh, yeah.
They may have already privated the OLED trailer. I want to check. I'm assuming someone would. I'm going to assume it hasn't been privated yet because I feel like I would have heard about it already. But let me just check. OLED Switch. Let's see. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Uh-oh.
No. Really? Every time we search on YouTube, something changes.
We found it
Because
last time very quickly.
Nintendo OLED Switch. I'm probably just not typing the words right. OLED first look. Nintendo Switch OLED first look. It should probably pop up now. Yeah, there it is. I was just being a dundercap and typing the words wrong. So it's still there.
Yeah, it's right there.
But once this is privated, I'm gonna be like, all right, in 2 days they're announcing the Mario Kart OLED bundle. So not yet, but maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, or maybe the rumor's wrong. But I think it makes more sense to expect a Mario Kart OLED bundle than it is. Like, if I had to place my bets, Mario Kart OLED bundle is more likely going to be announced in November than Nintendo Switch 2. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
But what about the Game Awards?
Oh, who knows?
Maybe. Anyway,
I've not put a lot of stock into that, but I can hope.
Yeah. I think it's now a good time to check back in with the chat. Is there anything else you want to mention in relation to this Mario Kart OLED bundle and a chance of a Switch 2 announcement? The other rumors we mentioned, the patent.
Nothing specific.
Okay.
Let's see what the chat has to say.
Okay, it's interesting, right? Because with each of those is kind of like its own conversation. Like there's, we haven't even talked about any of the Zelda stuff yet. Like all of that was kind of shoved in, and as I was talking, I realized there are things that I didn't plan on bringing up. That's just how much things have kind of popped up recently. But yeah, let's check in with the chat now. So. Okay, I got a couple of messages here. Super chat from Boo Mini. Thank you for your ongoing awesomeness and providing quality content. Well, thank you for appreciating that. I appreciate you appreciating me. Thank you. Your words mean a lot. It helps keep me going. So I appreciate that, Boo Mini. Thank you. Let's see here. Sammy Talks About Games has renewed their membership. Been a member for 9 months.
Wow.
Keep up the good work, bro. My prediction for Switch 2 is a February to March launch for a summer release. June?
February to March, like reveal for a summer release.
Yeah, that's
what they mean.
Yeah, I think that's what they mean. A launch in March for a release in June. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure Sam means an announcement around February to March for a summer release.
Right. That's not too far off from what I've been thinking. Like I've been thinking of February to March reveal with like a September release. So it could be a few months earlier than that. I think that's totally reasonable.
Sure. I guess part of me is like,
June seems a little early. I will say
it does seem a little early.
it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. But I guess what I'm kind of like thinking right now though is that as the chances of a Switch 2 announcement for this year become increasingly lower and lower, it's kind of like the optimists will like be like, okay, well maybe the next season, right? So instead of us being hopeful of like a January to March release, we're now transitioning to an April to June. And then as we approach March and there's still no announcement, we'll then be like, okay, well maybe not an April to June, maybe a July to September. Like that's so I guess what I'm where I'm kind of coming from here is that I want to be cautious of being like, yeah, since it's probably not getting announced this season, it's going to get announced next season to come out just a couple months later. I guess where I'm coming from is I want a little bit of like supporting evidence to think that it'll come out in June. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will tell you, and we've talked about this in the past, but I kind of like the idea of the system coming out in May. Why May? Why does May make any sense? It may not. But the reason why I'm going to make the argument, and again, this is not a prediction. This is just me throwing out an idea that I kind of like. It's because Nintendo already showed that they can push hardware in April with the Tears of the Kingdom OLED, and they showed that they can push strong game sales with Tears of the Kingdom itself in May. So I think maybe, this idea that Nintendo can't have a major launch in April or May, like they just proved it this year. They can. So maybe that's what they're aiming for. Now, what else beyond they're just being a recent example where they have shown strong sales in that period? Like what else would suggest that? Well, there isn't, I don't think.
Not
But
much.
I think it's like the earliest we can reasonably expect it to come out at this point is what I'm really getting at here. Because it's not coming out in March.
No, very
No,
unlikely.
I don't think so. That would be an even shorter reveal to release than the Switch itself. I mean, I guess if they announce it this week or something, like, and it comes out like late March, that's conceivable because Switch came out early March. But I think that that's unlikely, right? Like, there's just it's unlikely, especially if there is a Mario Kart OLED bundle about to be announced. That said, I make this argument for maybe the Switch 2 coming out April or May because I do have this, as I kind of said earlier, maybe like a 10 to 15% like sort of level of optimism that maybe they can give us a teaser at the Game Awards. Like I still hold out some level of hope for that.
My hope is
not
like
a lot,
5% or less.
It's low. Brandon's even lower. The pessimist.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you be like 8%? Be a little bit more bright and cheery, buddy.
I see how it is.
Yeah.
Fine, I'll be 9% then. Does that make you happy?
No, I mean, that doesn't make me happy. I want you to be as logical as possible. Don't think with your feelings. How dare you? Don't be human.
I'm getting conflicting signals, guys.
That's because I'm human. I'm not a robot. I speak with my feelings. Anyways. Joking aside, I do to your prediction though, like I feel like summer would be a great time to come out for Switch. We'll see what they do, but Switch 2, but it would be nice. Charles with a super chat as well. Thank you for the super chat. Tip time. Thanks as always. No, thank you, Charles, for always sticking around. I appreciate that. Thank you. But now looking into the chat, let's see if anything else is mentioned here. The real J-Stone, I believe the 1,000-Year Door coming in May 2024. That would be
much earlier than I would expect.
Yep, same. Because technically, it could happen. I believe Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is supposed to come in the summer. Like, I think they said that, right?
Yeah.
Or is that a mismemorization?
I don't remember them saying a.
Maybe that's just my hopes and dreams. I'm Googling it. Oh no, it already came out March 20th, 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Google is so unhelpful. This would be the direct from
No,
the
I mean I see
trailer.
multiple articles saying that they are aiming for
Yep,
for summer.
summer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Game
see it in the.
Informer, Dexerto. Yeah. It's
I'm
summer.
seeing it on their channel from the trailer
I
available
think
for
the reason there
2024.
was some I think I knew that, but I checked Nintendo's website and they just said 2024, so I was like,
Mm,
oh, maybe I misremembered that. But no, I
no,
remember
you
correctly.
remember
But
correctly.
sometimes we gotta double check because we don't want to
For sure.
spread misinformation.
But I feel like Thousand Year
So
is going to come after that game, considering it was announced
yeah,
after, and they have not given it any sort of release
yeah,
timeline for the next gen.
exactly. Like we have a better understanding of this game's of Dark Moon's release than we do of Thousand Year Door. So that they could still be late summer. They could come
Yeah,
out right alongside of each other. Like maybe Dark Moon comes out June and Thousand Year Door comes out July.
it's possible. I don't see why they wouldn't have just said summer then.
Well, maybe they weren't sure.
Maybe not.
I mean, sometimes we expect certain games to come out later and they end up coming out sooner. A few good examples: Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. They actually
Mm.
had announced it for September and Splatoon 3 for like July, and then they swapped dates.
Oh, that was Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
What did I say? I said Definitive Edition, right? Yeah, I meant Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Thank you. I had in mind Future Redeemed, which was the DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And that came out in April, like days after the release for Advance Wars and like a
Right.
couple weeks before Tears of the Kingdom. So there was like a lot just shoved in a very small period of time. We all thought
Man, what a
that
great
Future
game.
Redeemed was coming out like in the summer or something. Like
Oh, yeah.
they pushed it out way quicker than expected. So, with Thousand Year Door, it being a remake, like it could very well be the case that it's already done and they're just kind of waiting
Mm.
for whenever they want
It's
to
very possible.
throw us for a loop. So yeah, maybe it does come out May, but I think Brandon and I both kind of think that it's more likely coming out after Dark Moon, which is sometime in the summer. So we'll see.
Most likely.
Yeah. I'm just looking through the chat here. Let's see. Push player games. I think it's in relation to the patent we were talking about earlier. I wonder what Nintendo's trying to do with this. Do you think they're trying to keep the Nintendo DS design in their wheelhouse for a potential future project? Yeah. I mean, here's another idea. What if a patent is like for another system? And what if they do like remember how they did the NES Mini and the SNES Mini? What if they did something like that for the DS or the 3DS?
Oh.
I actually would so love that. I would
be
love
cool.
to get like a DS collector's edition
Oh,
that
yeah.
just plays classic games. And maybe it does come with a Bluetooth dongle so you can play on your TV if you want to. But since it's like a DS, it's not really running like extraordinarily high fidelity games. The battery life is still pretty reasonable. So they can get away with kind of just, Bluetooth overing like the video feed, and that still works.
Yeah,
I would really love that for both. I would love a DS version and a 3DS version. Like, give me like 10 to 20 of the best hits for DS or 10 to 20 of the best hits for 3DS. I'd be all in.
I would be super happy. I'd buy both.
And what if that's what the patent's for? Probably not, but
it could be. I mean, it is a very DS-looking system, and the bottom screen's smaller than the top screen. Different
looks like a
DS-like
3DS.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that they didn't try to model it after anything that looks even remotely like the Switch or the Switch patent. But,
yeah.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah. Well, a Switch 2 might not be a Switch 2. It might just be a hybrid device again.
What do you mean?
So, it being a hybrid device means it's both portable and a home console in one.
Right.
But they can do that without it being a Switch. doesn't have to have Joy-Cons.
Mm,
Technically doesn't need to dock, even though both you and I agree it should dock, or else that would be a bad
right.
idea. So my point simply is like they could come out with a successor that can still switch, perhaps. Like it's still both it's a home console and it's still a hybrid, right? But
Right.
maybe it does emulate more things from the DS or 3DS lines. I'm not saying this is gonna happen. I'm just, it's
Mm,
possible. It's possible, right? Like it doesn't have to be a Switch 2. I think it will be a Switch 2, basically, but it doesn't have to be a Switch 2.
no, but I don't know. I think Nintendo probably shouldn't try anything too
Drastic.
far. Yeah, too drastic
Yeah.
of a change. Nothing too wacky, nothing too, I guess, gimmicky. It, I think they need to be very careful what kind of features they include in the system, because I think we're already expecting it to be an expensive system. Like some rumors are saying, like
Yeah.
the main model that most people are gonna want is $450.
Yeah. And I'll also say this. We've already had some pretty meaty reports about the system.
Oh yeah.
We've had already some good sourcing on what the system will be. And like the Video Games Chronicle reports, the Eurogamer reports, what we've heard from Nate the Hate, none of those sources. Andy Robinson, well, he's from VGC. But point is, like, there's different people who would know about this stuff, or the Xbox Era podcast. Like, none of them have said anything to suggest it's a far different device than what the Switch is.
Right.
They've all suggested it's very much in line with what the Switch is. There's been no real signs that we're going to get a dramatic departure.
No.
So, I mean, maybe Nintendo will. I'm sure Nintendo's going to have a curveball or two. Like, I'm not saying there won't be some surprises, but I think we should expect it's probably going to be pretty much a sequel to the Switch.
Yeah, I think that's the smartest move for them for sure.
Yeah. So before we move on here, I'll do a couple more questions, and then we'll get to the next topic. Boomini, Adamy, do you think the next Switch will be reasonably priced? I hope it is.
I'm thinking they should shoot for a $400 price point.
Yeah.
$399.99.
That's what I'm kind of expecting.
I mean, I literally bought a PlayStation 5. Like, you can buy PlayStation 5s used for like $250, $300, super easy. And even they were having sales where PS5s were like $400, $450. So I feel like if the Switch wants to be like more competitive, I think $400 would be a more reasonable price for that system.
Sure.
I'm not saying it has to be like necessarily cheaper than every version of like the next generation system, right? Because when the Switch came out, it was generally the same or more expensive than a PS4 at the time or an Xbox One. But not say like an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro. So if it's more expensive than the Series S, that's perfectly fine. But I don't think it should be more expensive than like the Series X and the PS5.
Yeah,
Or
I mean, there's been talk of the
as
two different
expensive
versions, right? There may be like an all digital version potentially. And I personally, Brandon, I think you and me are on the same page here. Feel free to disagree and hurt my feelings if so. But I think we both kind of believe that a $399.99 USD, like a $400 system, is what us core fans are probably going to get, and that's what we're going to buy. And there may be a second version that's cheaper, that's all digital, that may sell for $300 or maybe $330 or something like that.
Yeah. It's interesting because I suspect if they do that, it will be the worst selling unit. Because right now the PS5, because the PS5 and the PS5 digital, they work exactly the same, right? But the PS5 digital,
between them, right?
Yeah, and it's $100. You can pay $100 less and get a PS5, play all the same games. But do people do that? No. People want the disc version. That's the best-selling one by as far as I know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure
I don't know.
the disc version is by far the best-selling one.
PS5 physical. Oh, it's probably gonna be games versus.
I do know that the Xbox Series S is supposedly selling better than the Series X, but I think that's because it's a $200 less device, and not just $100.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the sales. I'm trying to. A quick Google search isn't giving me a clear-cut
No,
answer.
you're not gonna get it from a quick Google search because Sony's not like just yelling out their sales. It's just from what I've heard of different sources.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Regardless, though, to answer the question, I think it's going to be priced at $400. That seems like the sweet spot. If you account for inflation, that's pretty much on par with what the Switch cost back in 2017. Maybe
Right.
a slight. It would be $400 is a little bit more than 300 back in the day, but it's not by much. And with everything we're hearing about Switch 2, it seems to be something that's going to be more competitive with current gen platforms than what Switch was back in the
Much
day.
more
It's going to last
custom.
longer in terms of like being relevant to modern technology.
Yeah, I would expect it to be more expensive because of the R&D for it. Because there was essentially like for the main chipset of the Switch, like they didn't have to pay any R&D costs because it was already made. They just took a stock NVIDIA chipset and then just used that. There was R&D obviously for every other part of the system, but that probably saved them a lot of money on R&D for that. And plus, those were already made chips that were not selling because the Shield was a flop.
Sure.
So that helped them a lot. So I would expect this to be generally a bit more expensive.
Yeah. But I think especially if there's a secondary version, Nintendo may make it more feasible for people to get a Switch if they're willing to forgo hardware. I mean, not hardware, but physical games.
Right.
But we'll see what they actually do. Here, Sky Sword Elisa added me. What do you think about the name Nintendo Swap for the next console? Synonym with Switch. I kind of like it, but I highly doubt that's what they'll go with. Switch 2 makes the most sense. Yeah, but a lot of people counter that by saying Nintendo never uses numbers to kind of like they never do 1 to 2 to 3. Well, they did do DS to 3DS. So and then Nintendo 64, but that was based off the bit rate, not the. It would be the Nintendo 3, I guess, which would have been funny. So, Nintendo Swap is interesting.
It is interesting. I've never heard somebody bring that one up, actually. I do like it.
Yeah. I mean, what are you swapping, though?
You're swapping between handheld and docked.
Maybe.
Swapping between modes.
Maybe you can have multiple cartridges inside your Switch swap, and you can swap them with ease.
Maybe so.
Or maybe that patent is legit, and it is like a panel you can swap.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be tough to figure out what the name is. Unless Nintendo finally just goes with the number scheme of just Switch 2. I think it's gonna be very hard to pinpoint what the name will actually be.
Oh, for sure. But I'm hoping it's Switch 2.
Yeah. Mike Odyssey in the chat. What's up, buddy? Mike says Nintendo Trio is more than capable. It's a home console, it's a handheld, and a VR device that will be backwards compatible with a 3DS with the extra screen accessories sold separately. What if? I will tell you this. I remember when we got the Eurogamer report for the Switch, and this was back when we didn't really know about hybrid devices. Like that was kind of like a whole new novel concept. When the Eurogamer put out the report saying the Nintendo's next console was going to be a handheld that had removable controllers, we didn't really think it would be. It was hard to envision that being a proper solution for the home console market for Nintendo fans. Like the Wii U was already a struggle, so when we were hearing that Nintendo was going to do a handheld device for their home console, there was a lot of concern. There was a lot of doubt that that's what it was going to be. But once we saw it, in practice, in motion, how they were actually going to be doing it was actually far more practical than we realized and achievable.
You keep
And
saying we, but I'd like to say I was not included because I kept up exactly with what the chipset was.
okay, all right, Brandon.
I'm just
When I say
wanting you to know that I'm better than you.
when I say we, I'm not even. Oh, I was a part of this conference. I was on this side at the time. But when I say we, I mean just the people who thought there's a lot of
Royal
people
we.
that were doubtful that what Jurgen was saying was going to be the Switch because it just didn't seem possible at the time for what we expected. But
Yeah, I just wanted to mess
that
with
is
you.
what it was, and Nintendo did it better than the way it was reported.
Oh
So
yeah, I definitely wasn't
you
sure
never know.
exactly how everything was going to come together.
So we
I
see
saw
this
that
weird
first
patent.
trailer.
If it ends up being the case that there is something to this patent with Intel's next device, I'll wait until I actually see it in motion before I completely outrule the possibility. That said, most patents don't materialize as we would expect them to, but it happens
Yeah.
sometimes. Anyways, I think it's now's a good time to move on to our next topic for the evening. I did say it was going to be more Zelda focused podcast. We haven't really talked about Zelda at all yet, so let's get that started. Zelda Remake. What do I mean? What do I mean the Zelda Remake? Well, basically, Dr. Sircon Toto, someone who is the CEO of Kanton Games. They're an industry consultant. They're an advisor for various gaming companies. Dr. Sircon Toto has connections and inside knowledge,
Oh yeah.
and has in the past talked about things that have proven to be true. In the past, has hinted at things that have proven to be true. One example being, well, when it comes to Zelda, it's a little interesting because once upon a time he teased something for Tears of the Kingdom, but it didn't materialize exactly as we kind of expected. Nintendo had announced their E3 Direct for summer 2021, and the Dr. Sircon Toto reposted this, retweeted. I'm almost forgetting what it was called. Retweeted and
Oh god, the X is going to
said
be.
Z222. And back then, there was a lot of speculation on Breath of the Wild 2 before we knew about Tears of the Kingdom when it would be coming out because Nintendo was very quiet on the game. And this E3 is when we finally got another look at the game after so long. It had been 2 years since we had gotten an update on the game.
Right.
And he just said he was four characters, Z222, implying that Zelda 2, the second Zelda, Breath of the Wild, so Tears of the Kingdom, would come out in 2022. Now, that's not what happened, but the trailer that came out in that direct had a 2022 release timing.
That was initially
Nintendo
their plans.
Exactly. It was delayed. So, point is, he has teased these things in the past, and recently he's done it again. So let me see if I can share this image with you. Actually, I had, once I saw the image, I snapshotted it and I shared it with Brandon because I knew I'd probably have to talk about this. I actually didn't even see it immediately, but let me just share it with you guys real quick here. Present. It's nothing too mind-blowing, but it's something. So here he tweeted ZR 2023 and it was deleted. Like not even that many people liked it, or like it was very few. Like I saw articles talking about it before he even before it was on people's feeds. I think what happens is you have some people. Well, what happens is you'll have certain sites or journalists that keep tabs on people who can't reveal that information. So once they post something, they get a notification. They check, and if it's something worthwhile, they'll write that up real quick. So that's probably why there were articles on this before it even caught fire, and then it was deleted. But point is, ZR 2023. What does that mean? It's in the same form factor as the prior tease he did back in 2021. Just a few characters. The initial articles were kind of interpreting this as Zelda Remake 2023.
Right.
So, what can that mean? That can mean a whole bunch of things.
A lot.
But Brandon, I'll give you an opportunity to tell me what you make of that.
It's very interesting because I'm not expecting any like new games to be announced to come out this year. It'd be very odd. Like if they did announce Zelda Remake as this implies, no matter how big the remake, I'm just wondering why not talk about it in the September Direct? Why would you wait and announce it this late? Like when's it going to come out? December? Like a month or two after they announce it? Less than 2 months after they announce it?
Yeah. One thing I realized is that ZR would be an acronym, right? We don't know what the R is for. It doesn't have to be remake. It could be remaster.
I mean, even remaster is like, but why? Like, even if this was Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, why? Why wait? Why not announce that earlier? Maybe they're a shadow drop.
Well, we don't have a December release. They could put out Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD in December.
Yeah, it would just be weird.
It would be unprecedented.
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever seen Nintendo announce something like that this late into the year for something to still come out in the year. Hasn't happened before, but it could happen. If Nintendo's sitting on the games, if they're just going to be released on the eShop with physical versions coming out a week or two later, they could do that. They could. Maybe it's tied into a Game Awards announcement because they're going to hype up Tears of the Kingdom, and because there's not a DLC plan for Tears of the Kingdom like they did have for Breath of the Wild when it was up for Game of the Year, what they did then back in 2017, they showcased the DLC that came out the day of the Game Awards. Maybe since there's no DLC now, instead of having a DLC campaign, they will have these older Zeldas that they'll simply shadow drop, and there you go.
It would be weird though, especially if they do it like, okay, so that'd be like the first week, or maybe the second week at the latest. But okay, so you have eShop releases then, and then 2 weeks later, which is like right before Christmas, you put out physical releases. I don't think they would do that. But maybe they just do the whole physical and digital at the same time.
I just think it's funny. I think the idea of it is funny because we're talking about we already know about all these bundles they've already come out with, right? They're supposedly going to be in a mass scale Amiibo restock. We got Mario Wonder and Detective Pikachu for October. We have WarioWare and Mario BG November. Like a lot of Mario stuff, Pokemon stuff, like the things that are going to sell the most that aren't necessarily the most high budget. And then now we're hearing about a Mario Kart OLED to come out in November. When we not too long ago we had a Mario Wonder OLED, right? Like all these different things that are going to sell a lot. And one other thing that will sell a lot is if they do release a Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD, like a holiday physical bundle. Oh, that you put that on in December, that will sell millions. Guaranteed. I bet it'll sell at least 5 million.
I wonder if it would sell worse though because there's no build up. It is after Black Friday. Most people have just done all of their Christmas shopping. No money.
Listen,
you announced
if you're a Zelda fan, you'll take out a loan. You're gonna buy it. So
that's fair. But I feel like the sales potential would definitely be lower.
Sure.
Especially like parents would not be buying this game for their kids. They just bought them a whole bunch of other stuff.
It almost feels like they'd be collector's items. Like a 3D All-Stars kind of thing. A limited release. Why?
Yeah.
Just because.
Just because. I mean, Nintendo, that kind of does sound like something Nintendo would do.
Right?
It would not be the greatest thing ever, though, to be fair.
Yeah. But I think this is the boring side of the conversation. Like, because there's another angle. It's the more exciting angle, where it's an announcement of something, and maybe it isn't just.
Yeah.
Maybe they just announced Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD, and it comes out a couple of months later.
Maybe.
Or maybe it's an announcement of another remake. And I've talked about a Zelda remake before. I actually put out a video a few weeks ago. We talked about it on the podcast. I think it makes sense for Nintendo to have a Zelda remake in the works. I mean, Nintendo is working on some sort of repurposing Zelda all the time. But if you look at how whenever there is a major Zelda game that closes out a generation, what they do to make sure there's some sort of Zelda to showcase the next system, they put together some sort of reworking of a prior Zelda, and that kind of showcases the new system. I think I can come up with. There's a few examples. So like one of the most recent ones is Skyward Sword. So Skyward Sword came out at the end of the Wii life, and then a year and a half less, like I think it was less than a year into the Wii U's life, we saw the release for Wind Waker HD, which showcased the HD visuals and new lighting engine. That was a pretty nice remaster from Nintendo.
Oh yeah,
that's one example. Another example: Spirit Tracks came out at the end of the DS's life cycle. Less than a year and a half later, they came out with Ocarina of Time 3D, like a few months into the lifespan of the 3DS, which showcased the abilities of the system.
Yeah.
So point is, there is a little bit of a history with where Nintendo puts out a Zelda late into a system, like, oh wait, we don't have a new Zelda for the system. We got to get something major Zelda out for the system for our Zelda fans, get in those sales, showcase what the system can do. So they remaster, or maybe in this case remake, a Zelda game for Switch 2. And maybe that's what Dr. Surkan Toto is referring to here. Now, I'm talking about for Switch 2.
This year, though.
Right. Okay, for when I did this, there was like a dust particle and I grabbed it. Wasn't trying weird camera tricks. So I'm kind of thinking that there's a possibility that while he may be teasing this now, he did delete the tweet. So
yeah,
it may be the case that it's not going to happen this year, but it was in the conversations. That's why he teased it, but maybe realized, oh, not happening this year. Let me kind of hide this, delete it.
Yeah, I feel like if he was confident in what people were saying about the rumor, he wouldn't have deleted it. Maybe he didn't intend for this to be a Zelda remake at all, and people just ran with that, and he's like, oh no, guys, this is not what I meant. Oh, I gotta take this down.
Yeah, I think it is what he meant, though. He did the same thing for Breath of the Wild, too. I mean, it's possible it's not, but you just kind of look at what he's done. It seems like, I think it's a pretty good bet that is what he was doing. But to your point, it's possible that maybe he realized people were misinterpreting it, because he was teasing something, but maybe it wasn't Zelda related, and people started to interpret it as Zelda related. Something else to point out, though, is that the initial tweet where he teased Tears of the Kingdom, then Breath of the Wild 2,
right?
That's also been deleted. So it may be the case that he deletes these teases after a little while, regardless.
He deleted this one very quickly.
Very quickly, though. Yeah. I don't remember the timing on when the other one was deleted. It just was.
Gotcha.
So I remember talking about it back then, though. I remember having this having a conversation about what he was saying here, like, and so it maybe it was possible that one was deleted back then too, but I don't remember it being taken down so quickly. I remember that being like a hot topic of conversation going into the direct.
You said something earlier that made me think. He said Zelda related, and I'm just like, oh, ZR could also just be Zelda related. Like, this literally could be anything. Could be like,
oh yeah,
anything Zelda.
That's a good point because Jeff Grubb did say a few months ago that he heard that something Zelda related that's not Tears of the Kingdom related is supposed to happen later this year.
Right.
Maybe these rumors are about the same thing. So what is that? I think Twilight Princess and Wind Waker are like the easiest things to kind of assume.
Right.
But to the
You've been
point
saying
I was
that for
trying to
so
make,
long.
I think a remake should be in the works though.
Oh yeah.
But I don't like what it actually
Timing doesn't
is.
seem right yet though.
I wouldn't expect. So say for example, Nintendo is indeed remaking Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess. I think those are the two best bets for like a 3D Zelda to be remade, if that's what we're talking about here. I don't think that would be announced this year because I think they would save it for Switch 2. And I don't even.
Yeah.
We just finished talking about how we think it's unlikely Switch 2 will be showcased this year. And the other problem is that even if they showcase Switch 2 this year, that doesn't mean they're going to showcase a Zelda remake. There's a whole bunch of other things they could showcase, like Metroid Prime 4, 3D Mario. So
yeah, I mean they could have in a teaser trailer, you know, this year they could have like a little snippet. You don't say what it is, but it's an Ocarina of Time remake. It'd be just see like a small little clip of it, like 5 seconds.
I mean, maybe, right? Like maybe there's a teaser that just showcases multiple things that are coming out in that first year. Maybe one of them is an Ocarina of Time remake or something. So we just see how amazing it looks, which hypes us up, right? And that's kind of one of the points of having a Zelda remake so early on, is because it's something that's going to excite a lot of people to want to get the system. So having that in the teaser alongside a 3D Mario, alongside a Metroid Prime 4, like if you want Switch 2 to get people excited, having those three in a teaser, that'll get people excited. Yeah, that would. I mean, I don't even know if they should do
Throw
that.
A couple third parties in there that are big.
Oh yeah, like Monster Hunter. Oof. Oh. Yeah, or some other high-profile third-party games that people don't expect, like maybe
Elden Ring or something.
maybe Call of Duty, maybe Grand Theft Auto, maybe a Bethesda
The deal's gone
game.
through, so I wouldn't be surprised if the first time we see the Switch, we see Call of Duty running on it as well.
Oh man, I guess the Switch 2 teaser, it went up from 15 to 20%, Brandon. just because maybe this ZR 2023 thing is tied to it somehow.
Maybe.
Probably not. 20% still low, but yeah. There's a lot of possibilities. I could talk about like what I would like to see for a Zelda remake all day. But Brandon, gun to your head, what is this?
Yeah, I got shot. I'm dead. Apparently, I can't think.
All right. Well, I think I'll just ask everyone in the chat then.
Yeah, it's the chat.
All right, I'll start a poll. I'll try and put 4 options. What is this? I'm gonna try and quote it correctly. ZR 2023 from Dr. Zorkon Toto.
It's so hard to just pick something because I don't think any of them are very likely. Like I have I don't have a ton of confidence in general. Not in that I don't have confidence in Dr. Shurkan, but I don't know what this could be.
All right, so these are the options I got so far, right? The question is, what is this ZR 2023 from Dr. Zorkon Toto? First option is Wind Waker and/or Twilight Princess HD. Second option is an ambitious Zelda remake. Third option is not even Zelda related. Fourth option, something Zelda, but not a game.
I'm kind of leaning towards that one.
I didn't even consider that as an option. But of course, the articles left me colored thinking, oh, because the headlines are Zelda Remake. So, you know, but all it is ZR. So it depends on what you interpret ZR is.
Yeah. And that can be a lot of things.
Yeah. Mike Odyssey in the chat saying February's my month, bro. What are you trying to say? You trying to say we're gonna get Zelda and Mario and Metroid news all there? It's all gonna happen at the same time. Yeah. Chicken Nugget. I don't know how old this chat is, but the current background music is playing is Space Junk Galaxy from Mario Galaxy.
You don't have timestamps turned on?
Timestamps turned on? Oh, you mean for like the chat?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
I don't see that. I don't.
If you click
don't
like
see-
the 3 little dots, you can just turn on timestamps.
Interesting.
And then you can see all when chats were said.
I don't see that option. Don't see it. Anyways, I don't need to be able to see a timestamp for every single comment in the chat. I don't need it. Mike Odyssey saying that Metro Prime 4 news is coming in February alongside Paper Mario and Zelda Remake. I guess we're getting that a February Direct to end all February Directs. Pretty hype. That would be very, very exciting.
I'd be very hyped.
Yeah. So I'll just pull up this super chat here. So Taker610 with another super chat. Thank you, Taker. Taker says ZR24 G Zelda Remake 2024 Grezzo. What's the G for? Good?
Good.
Great? I don't know.
It's for Gerudo.
The Gerudo Zelda Remake. Or a Grezzo Zelda Remake.
Yeah, I think he literally explains exactly what all those letters mean right after you put them in.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that is what it is. ZR24G, it's Zelda Remake 2024 Grezzo. You're right. That's what it is. Yep.
It's late, guys.
Very possible that's what's going on. Grezzo's working on something, so
yeah,
that could be it.
I'd take
now, I'm going to transition. Well, no, not yet. Let's check with the chat first. Unless there's anything else you want to say in relation to this potential remake, Brandon.
No, we can go to the chat.
Okay. Savvy Snake. What if it's a Zelda racing game called Zelda R? What are we racing on? Horses? Loft wings? Air bikes? Dragons? There's a lot of options, actually. You could make for quite the Zelda racer.
Oh, yeah.
There'd be a lot of links.
Lionels.
It would be fun. Especially if it was Koroks that you chose as the characters. I would be down, though, to get another Zelda track in the Mario Kart DLC. Like, what if the final wave goes against people's expectations of just basically taking content from Tour? And what if there's a couple tracks that we don't see coming, and one of them is a Zelda track?
Ooh.
Hence why you'd be interested, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd be super hyped.
Like, because we're supposed to get amiibo restocks for Smash, Zelda, Mario, and Metroid. Why? Like, maybe something should pop up there that's relevant. And if Mario Kart OLED is what's happening, maybe the DLC is going to get announced soon. I mean, it's already announced, but like like the release date announcement, and that would showcase all the details of the DLC.
Right.
Maybe they're going to add maybe what if they add Samus as a character, or if they add a Metroid stage, or another Zelda stage, or Princess Zelda as a playable character, or like an alt skin to Link or something, or just Tears of the Kingdom costumes for Link, because he already has two. He has his kind of basic green tunic form, and then he has the Breath of the Wild version. So
yeah, and that was just a free update.
These are possibilities.
They could definitely. I could definitely see them having a Tears of the Kingdom skin for Link. That seems like kind of, in terms of like Zelda content for Mario Kart, it seems like the easiest way to do it.
Toga Link, let's go.
Yeah, I take it.
Yeah, I also
new
really
stage
like
would be awesome though.
New stage would be amazing, based off like the sky islands. Like it
Yeah.
could be all of it. It could be the depths, it could be the surface and the sky islands. And you could have
Yeah.
the dragons. Like, oh, dude, they could
Could
do
ride
something.
on the dragons.
They could do something really cool.
Oh yeah.
It would be an amazing. It would be something. It is Mario Kart, so maybe they won't end the DLC with the Zelda track. But there's 2 Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Maybe they could end the first of the final 2 Grand Prix of the Zelda track. It would be pretty amazing.
Bro, imagine if Mario Kart 9, it doesn't focus on having like a ton of characters or a ton of tracks, but it is just like crazy tracks. You would not see Mario Kart 8 like a track we're talking about. Like you go from the sky to the ground to the depths, and you can see like the whole map of Breath of the Wild modeled out. Obviously not as high, or Tears of the Kingdom I should say. Obviously not as high fidelity, but you know, like you can see the whole map. I think that's something that would be far beyond the scope of the levels we see in Mario Kart 8.
Smash Kart.
Smash Kart.
Smash Kart. Something just dawned on me as I'm kind of looking at the poll right now. We're 27 votes in. Poll's only been up for a few minutes, but I see that the winning option right now is an ambitious Zelda remake by a few percentage points. That may or may not change. But Wind Waker Twilight Princess is second. It's close behind. But something that dawns on me, right? Because I was talking about how this Zelda remake would make a lot of sense for Switch 2, kind of outruling the possibility of a Switch 1 release. But who's to say it can't be for both? Paper Mario Thousand Year Door is an ambitious remake and it's coming out for Switch, but we've seen the Super Famicom button overlay in that game. Maybe it's a cross-gen release. Why can't a Zelda remake also be a cross-gen release?
It's possible.
I mean, you look at what they did with Metro Prime Remastered. What they did with that, I could see them still doing for like an Ocarina of Time. Like, if we're just talking about redoing the visuals and not really changing around too much game, maybe some gameplay changes, but not like significant ones.
Right.
I could see them getting that to run and look amazing on the Switch.
Oh yeah.
Like it could be done. And then maybe just the Switch 2 version just has extra visual enhancements like ray tracing and things like that. Like they could do something like that.
Definitely.
And so what if they do announce a Zelda remake at the Game Awards? And it is for Switch 2, but also Switch 1, and they just don't mention the Switch 2 version. They just showcase this amazing looking Zelda remake.
Yeah. Dude, I'd be super hyped. I mean, even if it is like more ambitious and like the Switch 2 is more the main focus, it could also still run on Switch with like less graphical features if they wanted it to.
Yeah.
They could show off the Switch 2 version like first, just not say it's Switch 2. And we just see something we're like, oh my gosh, how does this run on Switch?
Maybe
that
they
version
doesn't do the Game Awards thing, or how this is how both Microsoft and Sony tend to do it, and just like most of the industry, they'll put out basically like a CGI trailer saying, "Oh, not final footage" or something.
Oh yeah,
they could put out footage
really bad about that,
and they'll just have something in there that indicates that it's not necessarily gameplay for Switch. But what ends up happening is that the Switch 2 version, it's basically that's how the Switch 2 version looks, but the Switch 1 version will still look good, just not as crazy good.
Exactly.
Look who joined the show. It's Ruby.
Hey Ruby.
You just can see her tail, but she's here.
Yep.
I don't know if you can hear her.
What
purring.
a beautiful tail. I cannot.
Oh, there's her head.
See a little
right
bit
there.
of her face, yeah.
Right there. How you doing?
My cat was
Careful with
just
the mic.
around here, but I don't know where he went.
Watch out, baby. You can sit on my lap or you can go exploring elsewhere, but try not to mess with things. Okay. So anyways, like I think it's possible that they could still announce a Zelda remake at the Game Awards. It'd be for Switch 2, but also for Switch 1, and they just don't really talk about the Switch 2 version. They're very kind of hush-hush. It's possible. I don't know about likely, but it's possible.
I mean, Nintendo showed off trailers of games where they didn't disclose the fact that it wasn't running on Switch. For example, like if you look at Yoshi's, is it? That's not Woolly World. I think that was the Wii one, Crafted World. If you look at the initial trailers for the game, they're like full 1080p. Like they look like way cleaner and higher res than the actual game. Like there's no way that was the game running on Switch. Like it was clearly running on like some test PC or some development something, you know. But they didn't say anything about it. I just noticed. I was like, because I did pixel counting when the trailer came out, and I was like, oh man, they got this game running Unreal Engine 4, full 1080p, 60 FPS. This is great. But no, they did not in fact have it running at that resolution or even close. I think it was like a dynamic 720p or something.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at the initial Tears of the Kingdom trailer wasn't actually
Oh yeah,
in-game footage. We thought it was because Nintendo usually is transparent about that, and they showcase what's actually going to be there, but it wasn't. So I mean, they could just show like a really hype. I mean, it doesn't have to be a full showcase, right? It could just be a teaser, and a teaser can just be like a single really epic looking scene.
Right.
Enough to announce the existence of what it is, but we're nothing. Maybe like not like a trailer that showcase. I'm sorry, I couldn't speak English there. But maybe not like a trailer that showcases full-on gameplay segments, like from like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, for example. Like it wouldn't be something like that trailer we got in the past direct.
A lot of Game Awards trailers are very short.
Yeah, I mean that's another good point. Yeah, they would be short and concise, so there wouldn't even really be enough time to kind of give us an extensive gameplay trailer.
Nah, probably like 30 seconds to a minute long trailer.
Yeah, no, you could be right there. Yeah. But let's move on to our final topic, and then we'll close out with some Q&A. I'll leave the poll going on for now because it's pretty close. We'll see how it all ends up in the end. But let's transition to talking about a little bit of Tears of the Kingdom lore details. So we got an interview from Nintendo Dream Magazine. This is translated. I believe it's the original language is Japanese.
That sounds correct.
Yes, it is.
I'd be shocked if it was not English.
It's actually a 4-page interview. There's a lot of stuff here, and as I mentioned earlier, I will have a video kind of more deeply analyzing the stuff, putting out theories and stuff. But I think it'll be interesting to kind of go over some of these because they're interesting to say the least. So I'll just screen share real quick here. Ah! Let's see.
He's too happy.
All right, so we'll just start off with this one here. So in the Dragons and Tears movie, so this is a translation. A lot of this is going to sound a little off. But in the Dragon's Tear movie, there is a scene where the light is stronger than Sonia's, but is that also one of the parts where Princess Zelda is growing? Fujibayashi, the director of Tears of the Kingdom, I think she probably has quite a lot of power compared to the previous Princess Zeldas. In Breath, Princess Zelda was a story about growing up and overcoming a mountain, but in Tears, she's thinking about what she should do in a world where there are no more countries, and in her mind, the Kingdom of Hyrule itself is also a story. I'm wondering if I should rebuild it. At that time, due to this incident, she returns to the past world and sees the era of her country's founding, where her ancestors were. Princess Zelda's father was a strict man and her mother died at an early age, so she never had the chance to learn anything. But in her past world, she meets a very kind father-like figure and an experienced mother-like figure. If you watch the video for the Dragon Tears, you can see how Princess Zelda grows up and learns many things from them. Much time has passed since then, and the scene where she confronts Ganondorf is shown, where Princess Zelda is shown controlling her powers. If you watch the Dragon Tears movie again in order after clearing the game, you'll be able to see her gradually growing up. So we'll come back here, Jamal. We'll read a couple other pieces. But I find this excerpt to be interesting for a few different reasons. One, I had a theory that King Rauru and Queen Sonia were made to be father and mother-like figures for Princess Zelda, and this interview confirms that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was a hotly contested debate because I think it seemed fairly obvious, but it wasn't it wasn't said in the game, right? It was technically up for debate. Now it no longer is. So that alone, I would say, is interesting, and that has implications for how we interpret King Rar and how we interpret Queen Sonia. But also, and this part I thought was clear as well, but it's nice to get some confirmation. Princess Zelda is the strongest Zelda in the series. What she did at the end of Breath of the Wild, how she basically nuked Ganon,
That was
what
crazy.
she do, right? And even what she does in Tears of the Kingdom, which I would say seems a little bit weaker, but it's maybe more nuanced. Like she's doing things that the other Zeldas didn't do. Like she has far more involvement with the story and the actual like chain of events, and has an actual ability to impact what's going on in the world. This is significant, and it's nice to at least get confirmation of this.
Yeah, I mean, she did pretty much just use like the full power of the Triforce to just nuke Ganon at the end of Breath of the Wild, and we were just like, "That's crazy. Where did that come from?" So we're still not sure. Like, and then a lot of her power in the end of Tears of the Kingdom, it comes down to, I don't know. Are we worried about spoilers? I feel like the whole conversation technically could be.
Maybe just don't talk about the final moment of the game.
Okay.
You want to talk about the final moment of the game.
It's like okay, I'll have to like reference it. Anyways, what happens in the final moment of the game is also not necessarily her like normal state of power, right? So you got like there's always something enhancing her power.
We're definitely walking a fine line. Like this is thin ice.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you haven't done Tears of the Kingdom's story, I don't know why you would come to the lore details part of this discussion, to be honest.
Oh, we did cover, I guess, the rest of the podcast at this point. I mean, all the other topics, but we will do Q&A later.
I'm just struggling to make my point.
Okay, try one more time.
All right. My whole point is, well, I mean, I can spoil Breath of the Wild, right? I mean, we already pretty much did.
That one feels safe to spoil.
Like, we already said, like, she nukes Ganon.
Yeah, I did that. Like, I did that, yeah.
Yeah. And then I already said that she uses the Triforce to do so.
Sure.
But without saying anything about why, she's also using something to enhance her power at the end of Tears of the Kingdom. That's not like in Breath of the Wild, she's not necessarily using her own power. She's using the power of the Triforce. And at the end of Tears of the Kingdom, I mean, it is her power, but it's not naturally obtained, you know?
Sure. But I mean, we're just even thinking about what she does in the Tears of the Kingdom, the Tears of the Dragon quest, like the cutscenes from the past. She does a lot of different things. Like, yeah, but like what happens there is definitely a whole other level.
No, but yeah, her base power is very strong though. I mean, some of the cutscenes we see her kill like Moldugas and stuff with them, and one of the
right, like her power really embellishes that laser blast, which is in the trailer. So
yeah,
like it's complete obliteration of an entire herd of giant beasts. It's crazy. She fired her laser, or she helped. She was the gas for it. It's intense. But there's a few other excerpts I'd like to get to here. So let's jump into another one. Okay. So, come to think of it, isn't this the first time that Ganondorf has been depicted in a Zelda game that Fujibayashi is involved with? Fujibayashi, in my mind, Ganondorf was an untouchable, rather someone who was hard to touch. He's a very important character in the long history of the Zelda series. I also thought of Ganondorf as another main character. So he requires a certain amount of determination and skill to handle, and I think there was a part of him that he avoided somewhere. This time, the theme was Princess Zelda's thoughts on the state of the kingdom, so she wanted to depict the state of various countries and the appearance of kings. Ganondorf is evil from the perspective of the people of Hyrule, but he is also a king with his own pride and way of thinking, and is sometimes a demon king or the king of the Gerudo. That's why I thought he was the most convincing character to oppose Princess Zelda, or rather, he was a character I wanted to see appear. However, there are many longtime fans of Ganondorf, so it took a lot of determination to make his appearance in a way that would satisfy them. I'll just continue on here. Anuma. The first scene in Zelda series where Ganondorf kills someone would surprise me. However, after all, the enemy should be a bad guy. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to think this is the guy. Up until now, I've been gently portraying Ganondorf as a bad guy, but I think that in that world, this story wouldn't have worked if he wasn't portrayed as such a villain. I've been drawing him for a long time, but I feel that Ganondorf has been firmly established as a character in this work. This is the last part that I think is very interesting. Thank you. The interviewer says, it looks really cool. And Fujibayashi says, thank you. I think I was able to express it visually. The designer in charge says that they wanted him to not just be violent, but overwhelmingly evil, yet also a good guy that both men and women would fall in love with. I also pay close attention to the way he chooses his clothes and accessories, keeping in mind that Ganondorf himself has a high aesthetic sense and good taste. I designed him with the idea in mind that he would be a character who takes good care of his appearance and shows the elegance and intelligence of a king. And it paid attention to every part of his face, body, and fingertips, giving him strength and strength. That's obviously a translation issue. The result is an image that combines sexiness.
Haha, yes, sir.
All right. There's a lot to dissect there. So first, they made mention of how he actually is a nuanced, layered character. It is not just straight evil. He is a proud king. And I would just like to point out that I had a theory video on this that kind of highlighted this entirely. And so here they're confirming that they designed him to not just be a straight evil king. They wanted layers to him. So that's no longer speculation at this point. It's now confirmed that is the case. But what's also been confirmed is that they did intentionally design Ganondorf to be sexy and to appeal as much people as possible.
To men and women.
Find hilarious. What are you saying, Brandon?
To men and women, they said.
To men and I noticed. Yeah. It's hilarious. But I mean, if you look at the response on social media, I think that is what happened.
I think in the first podcast after they announced, after we first saw him, I said something. I think I made a comment. I don't remember what it was, but I definitely made a comment about it.
I think you probably made a comment at one point, yeah. I vaguely remember something like that. Yeah. It's just funny. It's funny how that they did that. But I mean, it makes sense though, right? Because he is the leader of the Gerudo. He's a sole male of an entire race of women. If there's at any point that there is an alpha male, it is Ganondorf.
Right.
He's as alpha as it gets because he's the only man. Exactly. So they designed him as a king of kings. Like he's
yes, sir.
Yeah. And it all fits. But I really love how they also noted that there's layers to him. He's a proud king. He has a people. He's not just straight evil. There's more to it than that. And it adds more reason to actually analyze the story a little bit more, even though I understand a lot of people are maybe mixed on the story. But I think there's a lot of good in the story too. So I think
I would say
worth it.
At the end of Tears of the Kingdom, the one thing I was thinking about Ganondorf is that, I wish they showed him being good more, I guess. I still prefer the Wind Waker. Wind Waker is my favorite Ganondorf because he goes into the whole story of why he attacked Hyrule in the first place. He's like, oh my.
We actually have less time with Ganondorf in the Wind Waker than we do in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, but that one scene is just so good.
It's a great scene, yeah.
I don't think they did anything necessarily bad. I just wish there was more.
Well, I mean, it definitely, when you watch the Tears of the Dragon Quest, it feels streamlined, right? It feels like they definitely cut out parts to just fit in what they had. There could definitely be
wish they showed
another
him
scene
among
on
his
Ganondorf
people more.
Yes.
Being a normal person, relating as a human being amongst the Gerudo.
You know what would have been cool if when you're exploring the Gerudo region, there's a part where you can unlock this kind of like memory. I guess the problem with it is that the story of Tears of the Kingdom, like the memories you find are from Zelda, right?
Right.
Because she's set into the past, so they only show things from her perspective.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about here is not a perspective that she would have. So they would have need to have, I guess, come up with some sort of story reason why we would see a memory from Gandorf's perspective. But that would have been cool, though,
Yeah.
if we did see that. So I agree with you there. I do think that they could have enhanced the story more so by doing these things. Like I said earlier, like I personally, like through my theorizing and listening to what he does say in the game and the few monologues he has, like I think you can extrapolate
Right.
what they intended for the character as they kind of said here in the interview. But I think they could have put in another scene to make it more clear for more people. And also
Yeah.
it would have just been, they could have enriched that a little bit more. They could have been a little bit more to that. It would have been nice for sure. Like they did design Kotaka and Koeme. Like they are his left and right hand. They are the left and right hand of Ganondorf. But we just see them bow down. There's no dialogue. There's no expressions from them. It would have been nice to have gone to scene with them and Ganondorf dealing with something that was just a Gerudo issue, you know?
Yeah.
And to that end, like I think there could have been there could have been another scene characterizing Sonia more, because I think we need a little bit more of Queen Sonia, for example. Maybe we could have gotten a scene about King Ra and Queen Sonia before Zelda came into the picture. That would have been interesting.
Oh yeah. That would have been nice.
Yeah. And maybe we could have gone scenes like, so, you know, maybe instead of like retelling the imprisoning war the way they did in the game, maybe instead when you beat the 4 different dungeons, they just had a memory that kind of told you more about the past. It wasn't necessarily, actually, that's how you do it.
Give a memory from their perspective.
That's what it is. It's actually perfect. So they could have done, when you did the Lightning Temple, the Gerudo region dungeon, they could have used the memory from the Sage's perspective, which would have coincided with something that could relate to Gandorf more. Because if she is a Gerudo Sage, she's probably high, very high, very up in the hierarchy. So she would have been close to Ganondorf, and there could have been a conversation between her, Ganondorf, and Kotaka and Koeme. And then you let's say like for the Rito one, they could have maybe told us more about the giant boat in the sky, more on that legend.
Yeah.
For the Gerudo one, they could have told us more about the land of Gerondia. For the Zora one, I mean, they could have come up with something for sure, like why their dungeons in space. I don't know. Like they could have done something there. And then for the 5th dungeon, that could have maybe, tying in Minoru alongside Queen Sonia and King Rauru before Zelda came into the picture, or at least something that kind of tell us more about them. And that would have been a more natural way to handle it, as opposed to just retelling the imprisoning war 5 different times.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I agree that would have been better. But I feel like there's just so many people complaining about it. I don't want it to continue. But I definitely agree. So there's a little bit more. I'm not gonna look over every single thing, but just kind of stay tuned for the analysis. But I will read this next part here. It's about the Zonai tribe. Okay. So do you mean the Zonai tribe in this work expanded on the setting that had been planted in the previous work? Fujibayashi, I agree. It's not like I was thinking about the sequel or making any calculations at the time, but I feel like the settings that we had created for the living world became even more connected when combined with the play in this work. After working with staff to some extent on multiple settings, including the Zonai tribe, Lome Island, and the Secret tribe, we constructed terrain, design, and gameplay. Aonuma. Among the things that weren't expressed in the previous work, there were a lot of things that we thought about in terms of setting. The reason we were able to pick up on things and expand on them making the sequel is because we packed in a lot of elements from the previous work. I guess the point they're making here is that the Zonai were in Breath of the Wild, but they had not thought so far ahead of the Zonai in Breath of the Wild and thought that they would be exactly they are in Tears of the Kingdom.
Right.
They put in a lot of interesting elements like the Zonai. Then when they were making Tears of the Kingdom, they're like, okay, so this is what we know on them so far. Let's expand on that. And that's what
Right.
helped kind of amount to what we've seen so far.
What's the Seeker tribe?
I don't know.
And I'm not exactly sure what they're referencing with Lome Island either.
I'm not sure.
I'm not even
I
sure if
remember,
that's translated correctly or not.
I think there's the Lome Ruins. The Lome Labyrinth is it's one of the labyrinths.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what they mean by seeker though. That's just a guess. Don't know. Seeker tribe. The Sheikah tribe?
Maybe, but
Could be a Sheikah tribe.
It seems really obvious.
Oh, this part I find interesting. Okay, this is the actual last part. Maybe. This part I found interesting, and I'll explain why in a moment. All right, so by the way, the new character of the Zonai tribe is Raoul. I was surprised to see such a familiar name. Is there any intentional part? They mean Rauru, but I find it interesting that they're saying Raoul because my father's name is Raoul.
Is Rauru a common name? I've never heard that name outside this game.
Yeah, but they just interpret it as Raoul. What's funny is I told my dad this the other day because I was kind of talking about Tears of the Kingdom to him, and I was telling him there's this character named Rauru, which is a name they've used in the past because there was a prior, there's Rauru from Ocarina of Time, and what I explained to him though is that Raru's always kind of been like thought of as like this person who guides, is like a very wise old character. And I was trying to tell my dad that I see him as kind of like a wise guardian like person for like me. like he's kind of like a counsel for me. So it's just kind of interesting. I mean, the thing is, Raoul actually means wolf counselor. So I think it is actually meant to be like a name that's about guiding and teaching. And as they talk about here, that is kind of like the intent with Rauru. So Fujibayashi says his name comes from his role. For the Zelda series, Raoul, I think you say Raoul, is in the position of being a guiding figure. In his work, as Princess Zelda's further growth is depicted, she is guided by the king and queen of the country's founding era in the past world. When we wonder what kind of person would be suitable for such a role, we decided to select someone by the name of Raoul. They mean Rauru, but I don't know. But when I first heard he would be called Raoul, I thought it was a very natural progression, but I wonder how many people currently playing Tears actually know about the character Raoul. Oh, full circle, gentle lads. The remake for Ocarina of Time is happening, and here it is. Am I the only one that understood that? Brand, did I lose you there?
You're just saying that you said that earlier. Like it's named after Rauru from Ocarina of Time.
No, okay, yeah, all right. So
I don't get it past that.
All right, I'm joking, but also not. So here he says, but I wonder how many people of the currently playing Tears of the Kingdom actually know about the character Raoul.
Oh,
so Rauru, that's what they mean by Raoul, is from Ocarina of Time, the first Raoul. Rauru. I'm clicking off this. So confusing. All right. So I guess what's neat, right? We were just talking about Koteke and Koeme as well, right? These are characters from Ocarina of Time, and then Rauru, the initial ones from Ocarina of Time as well.
Right.
If there is a Zelda remake that's about to happen, and there is no Tears of the Kingdom DLC, but they want to do something that builds on Tears of the Kingdom, an Ocarina of Time remake that perhaps kind of showcases it highlights some elements in Ocarina of Time that are important for the story for Tears of the Kingdom. That might be a good way to kind of get the best of both worlds. Like move on, give us a remake, but also give us something that Tears of the Kingdom fans can kind of move on to.
He makes a good point. Like he says, like he wonders how many people even know about the character of Rauru from Ocarina of Time.
Exactly.
And like, I was thinking like, why wouldn't they know about that? Like, most Zelda fans should know about this, but no, like a lot of new Zelda fans have never played Ocarina of Time. Like they've
And
only
maybe
played Breath
not
of the
even
Wild and
Ocarina of
Tears of the
Time
Kingdom.
3D. Exactly. So
Yeah.
what's interesting here is that the director of the Zelda series has a perspective that people wouldn't know about this. So putting out a remake, like if
Makes sense.
if Nintendo were to like be like, hey, we need a Zelda remake, and they would ask the director of the Zelda series what would make sense. Well, not a lot of people know about this game nowadays. It seems like it may be a good idea to revisit this one.
Yeah, because like some people might be like, oh, but they already remade Ocarina of Time on 3DS. But yeah, but how many people have played that who actually played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? Like, there's so many millions of new fans. I mean, it's sold so many more millions of copies than any of the other games. So naturally, there's a lot of new fans who've never played Ocarina of Time or maybe any of the other 3D Zelda games or even 2D Zelda games.
Yeah. So maybe Nintendo will be more willing to kind of go back to some of these games. As
Yeah.
that we say, oh, could that remake add some Zonai lore? Like, yes, like maybe
Ooh.
an Ocarina of Time remake could add some Zonai lore, could add some Gerudo lore. And I'll also say this, right? If maybe it's not Ocarina of Time the remake, but what if they go back and redo Twilight Princess instead? The Twilight theorized could be in some way related to the Zonai. If there's anything to this idea, they could add in lore details to help enrich that concept more so, or
Gotcha.
maybe perhaps explain a little bit more of the kind of Rito gap, because like the Twilight Princess HD has some illustrations showing bird people, but like why, right? So there could be something there. Whatever they decide to do, if they decide to do a Zelda remake, it's an opportunity for them to go back and add some details to add more context, or perhaps just straight up more lore that helps to enrich what we know about Zelda, the series of Zelda so far.
Oh yeah, I would like to see some more stuff. It's hard to tell like the scope of what they would add, but small little details are pretty easy to add.
I just think it's interesting that I was going over the Tears of the Kingdom lore details, and I wasn't even thinking from the perspective, oh, is there any like remake hints here? But we twisted it, and I think there's a possibility, but you know, we'll see. Let's move on to do some Q&A though. I think is there anything you want to kind of speak on, Brandon, actually, from what we discussed so far, or should we just jump into Q&A? I'm sure we're going to talk more about Zelda in the Q&A, but
no, I think we can move on to the Q&A.
Okay, cool. That way we could actually end at a reasonable time.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so guys, we're now transitioning to Q&A, just focusing on just questions and answering for the next 15 minutes or so. So is there anything you want to talk about or mention? At me now, send your messages, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. Wily Tiger, I think Tears of the Kingdom is an example of what an open world should be, and at the same time shouldn't be. If you want to expand on that, you're more than welcome to. But just me trying to guess what you're sort of getting at here. I think with most Zelda games, they receive tons of praise, but also tons of criticism from the core fan base. It's kind of funny, like the core Zelda fans attack Zelda more than everyone else. But we do that in part because we care about the franchise so much, and we acknowledge it as like the best there is, and we want to see it truly be the best. So we're like, oh, but this could be better. They could do this. They could be that, right? We're all very critical. Maybe not all, but a lot of us are.
Yeah.
So looking
at different people have
Kingdom,
different expectations.
I mean, that's true as well, right? Like what I think may be a great way to handle things, you may not, Brandon. I mean, for example, I'm higher on Tears of the Kingdom than you are. I know you still like the game, but like for me, Tears of the Kingdom is probably my game of the year. For you, it's not.
I don't think it will be my game of the year. No.
Yeah. That said, though, right? Like I'm sure you could take a look at Tears of the Kingdom and be like, hey, so these are things they did right that I love, but there's also things here that they could definitely do better.
Oh yeah. It's just it's a very vague question, right? Like we could
Sure.
talk about that subject for hours.
Oh, for sure. And we talked about how some ways they could have made the story better. Just
Oh yeah,
different cutscenes for the dungeon, for the end of the dungeons would have made a big difference.
yeah. I think if I want to sum up my complaints into something short, it would just be that there's too much repurposed content, and the repurposed content doesn't feel new enough to me personally.
Yeah. I understand that. I mean, I agree. There's a little bit of sequelitis there.
Yeah. I think if it was set in a different world, it would have been infinitely better for me.
I understand. And I want to be able to explore a fresh new world too. So I'm looking forward to that whenever that does happen.
Oh yeah. My hype on the Zelda series as a whole is not diminished in the slightest.
Yeah. I'm happy for you, Brandon. I'm glad you're still a Zelda fan.
Always.
Mike Odyssey, you're leaving Florida to North Carolina.
To be
Why
honest,
is that?
That's probably a better place. I'd rather live in North Carolina than Florida. North Carolina is beautiful, bro. And there's not a lot of people there, and it's not that expensive.
How dare
Been
you
there
make
many
fun of
times. It's a
my
great place.
home?
Make fun of your home. Yes, that's
Florida's
exactly
the
what I did.
best. I mean, I live in Miami, right? So Miami's very different from the rest of Florida. It's very different. Like Wiley Tiger, you just said Florida's so trashy. There's different.
There's tiers to it.
Northern Florida and Southern Florida are two very different places.
Yeah, I've only been in Northern Florida.
Well, like Northern Florida is like where a lot of people retire to, right, from other parts of the country. You get down to Miami. Miami is like, you know, a fun, vibrant, colorful city with all types of people, and it's very different.
Then you go further south, and there's just crazy people living in the swamps.
Yeah. You know, I understand
Florida
that.
man, you know.
I hear you. Anyways, I'm gonna stop. It'd be nice if I could talk about Tears of the Kingdom and or Florida and not have them insulted.
I didn't insult them.
If Tears of the Kingdom comes up, it must be critiqued. If the state of Florida comes up, it must be called garbage.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
It's okay. Django, happy belated, Andres. I'm a VOD watcher, but I'm popping in early just to say that thank you for popping in. I appreciate that. So I see here that the poll is currently at 55 votes, and what's interesting is that we've seen an overtaking of what is going to win. For a while, the ambitious Zelda remake option as the most likely option was winning, but Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess HD have taken the lead here in the poll. So I'm going to leave this up for a couple more minutes.
And now they're tied.
This is me trying to bring in more votes and see what happens. That's a Brandon's point. They are now tied. Yes, vote in. Put in your final votes. What do you think the ZR 2023 from Dr. Zircon Toto means? Is it relating to Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD? Does it mean as an ambitious Zelda remake? Is it not even Zelda related, or is it something Zelda related but not actually a game? Put in your vote. Let's finish this up. Let's decide a winner. Although the not even Zelda related options only at 7%, so there would have to be a lot of votes to change it for that one. But maybe it could get second place. 14% is not that far off. We'll see. So Barbecue SOS asked, what do you think was the biggest improvement made in Tears of the Kingdom, and what is the thing that Tears of the Kingdom did worst? That's actually a very interesting question. So let's think about it.
I've already said what I think that they did worst.
When the story.
Well, no, the repurposed content.
Okay.
I already said that was my biggest issue with the game.
Well, yeah, because the sequelitis.
Yeah.
We also complain about the story all the time. That's why for a moment I thought you meant the story.
Well, the story's not that bad. It just could have been better. I don't complain about it all the time. It's just that people talk about it, and so I gotta
So
say
then you
something.
respond. I
Yeah,
hear you.
the story's
The
fine. It
biggest
just could have been a lot better.
improvement, I think the biggest improvement in Tears of the Kingdom is,
I like the fuse ability, honestly. That's like my favorite thing. Probably in Tears of the Kingdom's the fuse ability adds a lot. I didn't really like Ultra End as much as I thought I was going to.
I mean, we've talked about this. You don't like building stuff. I do.
Yeah.
It's that's that simple. But I think that the abilities, like, I think I'm just gonna say that the physics system is the clear improvement because there's so much
Mm.
more that can be done. You have these interactions with the NPCs, like you can have the sages run alongside and fight with you. They have their own AI. You can wage war with an enemy encampment, and there's no blatant slowdowns. That's insane. And then you still have the ability to build stuff on the fly, fly high up into the air, dive straight down with all that still going on. I think that's probably their biggest improvement. But I do want to
Probably.
put in an honorable mention for how they handled the story to an extent. And I understand people like, well, how could you dare say that's even should be considered as the biggest improvement? That's like the biggest non-improvement.
The
But
story is better though.
I think they made
Wow.
a lot of advances with the story. I think the voice acting is better. I didn't notice any in Breath of the Wild. I felt like a lot of the cutscenes were a little bit awkward with Link being silent. I think what they did this time, it worked a lot better. You had two different stories kind of happening in conjunction with each other. You had Zelda's story in the past and Link's story in the present, and I
Right.
think it made a lot more sense. And I think they found something there that they just have to enhance and build upon. And so I think while it's maybe rough around the edges, having this sort of multifaceted story where there's different character perspectives that you learn more about as you progress and explore the world, they need to build on that because there's something there. They just, the execution can be done even better.
I would say it probably has the best story of any Zelda game other than Skyward Sword. Like, at least, maybe not the best, but it's as good as all the other Zelda games. Like, I would say Skyward Sword, for me, the way they told it and the emphasis on the story was better. But that was a very story-driven game.
Tears of the Kingdom has, from a story perspective, has like the best beginning, I would say.
Ooh, it's got an amazing opening. That is, yeah, I would say it has the best opening for sure. By far. It's got a great opening.
I mean, it's hard to. I think maybe Twilight Princess of the 3D Zeldas might have the worst opening.
I actually really liked Twilight Princess opening.
I like the opening monologue. I guess I'm just stuck thinking about just how long the introductory section is.
See, I always enjoyed that because I liked to play like that segment a lot. Actually, I never minded that, or I never really minded any of the openings for Zelda other than Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword is, I think, the worst opener. It's so bad. Like, there's just it's so tedious and long, and not that much
It's
interesting
interesting.
happening.
I mean, it's interesting you say that because you love the story in Skyward Sword. Like a lot of the story happens in the beginning.
Well,
but there's just the gameplay
yeah,
stuff.
but the
in
gameplay
between.
part sucks.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild. Like they prioritize gameplay over anything else. So that's
it also takes a while
helps.
to get to the interesting part of the story. In the opening of Skyward Sword, there's some like, kind of interesting, like interactions and stuff. Most of the actual like when the story gets going is pretty far into it, or it's just like in between all this tedious stuff that I didn't want to do that took forever. So it wasn't really the story part wasn't the problem in Skyward Sword. It was what you were actually doing. Whereas in Twilight Princess, I actually enjoyed being like a kind of farmer, goat herder kind of dude, going doing some fishing mini games and stuff.
I do like all that stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. In hindsight, was it a great idea to force you to do that at the beginning of the game? Probably not, but I didn't have a problem with it ever any of the times I've played the game.
I mean, if they were to kind of like redo that, but like in a more open format, like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, I think it would work a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, you can basically do all those things in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom too. It's just,
It
it's
would be
an
cool
open
if there
environment.
were like in the next game there were like huge flocks of like animals, like a whole like herd of like 50 sheep, like something.
I mean,
like
imagine
really
if
cool
they
like
kind
that.
of reimagined, I guess pun intended there, but like if they reimagined Twilight Princess, but with a format like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, where the opening segment of the game is it's a enclosed but large open area, and you can do a lot there, but you can't go beyond it until you
Right.
accomplish a certain amount of tasks. But it's still, it's a sandbox you can explore and do a whole bunch of things in, and it's kind of embellishing everything you're going to redo in Twilight Princess, but with kind of like that Tears of the Kingdom engine. So maybe it would have been interesting to kind of see something like that with that engine, like to your point, like having the cattle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Being able to wrangle like 20, 30, 40 cattle at once.
Yeah.
Bro.
For the record, I wouldn't expect that for a Twilight Princess remake, but a man can dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna end the poll. I think
it seems clear the winner at this point.
Yeah, I don't know if this is people using their alternative accounts. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
But because I just noticed a huge swing, but the way the vote has ended, 83 votes in, Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess HD is the most popular prediction of what ZR 2023 means at 54%. Ambitious Zelda Remakes at 30, Something Zelda but not a game is 9, and Not Even Zelda related is 6. So it seems that most people think it is something Zelda related. Most the majority of people think it is something related to Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess. So I mean, okay, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Although Ambitious Zelda Remakes is still a healthy 30%. That's gotta. We'll see. I'll also say that the poll. I've seen the polls and they've been wrong before. They've also been right. They've also been right. But
no, Andres, what are you talking about? The polls know all. What this happens in this polls is sacred event that determines the future.
Yeah. Wiley Tiger's asking, how does ZR equate to Wind Waker HD? So Z standing for Zelda, R standing for remaster. Wind Waker HD being a remaster. So that's what it would be. And given that it has a 2023 year, it's a lot easier to envision Wind Waker or Twilight Princess being kind of like shadow dropped or coming out really soon than a full-blown Zelda remake.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's a very reasonable. I think that it is reasonable to think that that's what this is. But also he deleted the tweet, so it may
really
be
hard to say.
Not even Zelda related. Perhaps the 6% of the 83 votes could be the true.
I'm still staying on my camp with the 9% who think it's something Zelda but not a game.
Yeah.
I got a good feeling about that one.
I think they're all valid considerations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Glazer's World, aka Mary. I love that there are so many different Zelda games that we can pick apart, the best of and worst of each. What a great problem to have. Yeah, it's
true.
It is. It is funny that it's quite the luxury that we can do that.
There's so many Zelda games. They're
Yeah.
all good. And most of them are great or amazing.
Yeah. What's the worst one, Brandon?
Zelda 2 is probably my least favorite one.
You take that back. It's obviously Spirit
Zelda
Tracks.
2, I barely even want to play. Well, Spirit Tracks.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
Spirit Tracks.
I said that to piss you off.
Okay, let me say Link to the
Yeah.
Past then. Fuck all you guys.
Do you
I'm gonna
think
say
that would
Link to
piss
the
me off?
Past.
You think that would piss me off? Have I ever told you that Link to the Past is like my favorite Zelda? I've never told you that. I
No,
like
but
Link to the
people
Past.
like it.
I do. I like it. It's good. But I like A Link Between Worlds even more.
Link Between Worlds is way better. Link to the Past I didn't even finish. I found it to be too obtuse in where you're supposed to go and sometimes what you were supposed to do.
Oh, so you're saying that you're bad at the game.
No, I was fine at the game. It's not a hard game. It's
Did you
just
beat
like
it?
No.
And you were bad at the game.
Is that how that works?
No.
Because I didn't take the
It
time.
might be. But probably not necessarily. Anyway, I'm just joking. I actually, if there's a Zelda 2 remade, Zelda 2, like as Varen Verby says, Zelda 2 had amazing music and it was a good game. Like, what if Zelda 2 got a remake like that? Out of all the Zeldas, like that one, I think needs a remake the most,
It's not even
make
close.
it more playable for more people.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's not even close. That game would have to have a remake to be playable for most people these days.
Right. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah, I'm saying though, it's not even a competition. Like, it's by far the hardest, most like obtuse game in the series.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no other Zelda game like it.
No.
No, it's like a different style of game.
Yeah. For the style of game it is, I've seen people play it. It's ridiculous.
It's very hard.
I don't understand how people had the patience to beat that game without because nowadays you can just kind of save at any time and just restart at any point you want. I've seen people get frustrated and quit playing that way. Like, imagine not save scumming in that game. Ooh. Like with modern save.
Maybe I should play Zelda 2 tonight. No, I want to go to sleep.
Fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've reached the end for tonight's discussion. Now, all I'm kind of thinking is, man, I really want a Zelda remake of either Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess to give us more lore details.
Oh, yeah.
To expand on what we know from Tears of the Kingdom. That would be sick. But that is mostly just wishful thinking.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
it makes sense. Sometimes they do things that just make sense.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Brandon?
I'm saying I just want the remakes just to have those games remade.
Yeah. I mean, that would be... Part of me just wants it because of how good it could look. Like, I just want... I'll tell you this. I recently played Twilight Princess HD. If they announced Twilight Princess HD at the Game Awards or what have you this year, and it's basically the exact same release that was on Wii U, there's a really good chance I won't buy it because I already have the game on Wii U. If it's not any different, if the only difference is that it's at 60 frames per second and maybe at 1080p, like that would be nice, but that still wouldn't be
already
enough.
At 1080p.
Huh?
The Wii U game, I believe, is already 1080p.
Yeah.
Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, I believe, are both 1080p games.
Maybe they just had trailers at 720p back then, but the actual games were 1080.
I mean, yeah, all their trailers were in 720p back then. So, I'm pretty sure the game was 1080p. I know Wind Waker was.
Yeah. Varen Verby is asking if he can see Ruby one more time. She's on the floor, just kind of snoozing, so I don't want to disturb her. but she's right there. I guess I could move the camera and just show the floor. There she is. She just roosting
Chilling.
there. Yeah. So
I'm just holding my cat, petting him.
yeah. Anyways, thank you everyone for stopping by, liking the stream, watching the show. I hope you enjoyed it. But we'll see you all really soon. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye, guys.